pero también ahora en Europa. Yo podría intentar hablar castellano, no muy bien, pero voy a hablar en inglés porque tenemos una audiencia más diversificada. Entonces voy a cambiar en inglés. Good morning, everybody. This is really a great pleasure to be in such an inspiring venue.
En este lugar tan emocionante, la verdad, un museo bellísimo. Ha sido una decisión excelente tomada por nuestros socios españoles, la de reunirnos aquí. Y voy a decir que también estoy encantada de estar aquí
strong partnership between FEPS, Pablo Iglesias Foundation, with my good friend Beatriz Corredor, and also Friedrich Schebert, who has been a great partner across Europe. And Gero Mas, again, many, many thanks for having you here. We are opening all this sequence of events around the Congress of the Party of European Socialists with some key initiatives. This belongs to the great working line of FEPS, which is called To Europe. You should know that FEPS is organizing all kinds of conferences, debates across Europe with many other partners. We have close to 50 full member foundations and many other partners. So we are conducting really full debate. And today, what will happen today in this debate, I think is particularly important, because we know that what is happening here in Spain is an historical battle for the future of Spain. And we know this battle for the future of Spain is also a big battle for the future of the European Union. We know this. And that's why it's so important for us to be here with our Spanish friends to tell them that we are fully with them and will fight to have the best outcome we need to have to change the direction of Europe. What is happening in Spain is, let's say, a good summary of the big battle for Europe. Because first, Spain was one of the most damaged countries by the new liberal agenda, by the financial crisis. The cost is still there. This is not over. This was translated in high unemployment rates and high poverty rates and huge social inequalities. And this is still there. And why this is still there, now we have a new opponent, not only the neoliberals and the conservatives, we are also dealing with something new here in Spain and in other countries, which is the far right. Reactionary, xenophobic, really anti-democratic. And that's why this is such an historical battle. And we progressives, we know that we are the only real alternative. Because we have the real alternative for another economic policy against the neoliberal agenda. We have the real alternative to fight social inequalities with the European social pillar. Now we have launched this everywhere with many concrete instruments. But we are also conducting a much larger battle for fundamental rights, democracy, at all levels. And we believe that all these should also be translated into a big transformation of our societies to ensure full equality, men and women. And that's why you should not be surprised that the themes we have together chosen for this conference today are: one, big initiative for social Europe around housing, because housing means a big investment for the future, but also a powerful instrument to fight social inequalities. So I'm very pleased that, Beatrice, you'll be pushing for this, because we want to make a big program for housing in Europe over the next years. So let's start discussing here in Spain. And then we'll have a second panel on gender equality, because we believe that gender equality will be the real root of having a democratic society based on real equality. We believe on this. I believe in the role of women and in the role of men to rebalance our societies. And of course, we'll be very pleased to have this second panel with Zita Gurmai, which she's not yet, but she's about to arrive. So that's why we are launching this FEPS conference, Call to Europe, with these two big themes. So many thanks again for all the speakers, and many thanks again for our partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Up to its expectations, if you hope to achieve good things. So, regarding the upcoming European elections and the Spanish one, I think maybe let's combine the spirit of both, the determination of La Pasionada and Willy's call to formulate new forward-looking answers. And last but not least, I want to show you my instrument of optimism. So sometimes when I really feel a bit down, when I look around in Europe and reflecting on the situation of social democratic parties, that's made by our department, of the FS department on political education. So it's the history of the working class movement on the one side, on the other side is the history of the Social Democratic Party. And we all know that's a bit where we are, yeah. But be aware, we are coming up again. So in this spirit, a good conference. Thank you.
So, we are just to begin the first panel. I'm going to speak in Spanish, sorry, but you'll both understand perfectly. So, lo primero que quiero deciros es que hoy es el 80 aniversario de la muerte de Antonio Machado en el exilio. Antonio Machado fue un escritor y poeta español que en 1939 tuvo que pasar la frontera a Francia y falleció en Collioure, exiliado como consecuencia de la guerra civil. Antonio Machado pronunció y escribió unas palabras muy bonitas sobre Pablo Iglesias, que es el fundador del Partido Socialista y de la Fundación, y la Fundación Pablo Iglesias está dedicada a él. Este año el Partido Socialista cumple 140 años. Lo que dijo Antonio Machado de Pablo Iglesias, una vez que lo escuchó hablar en un parque de Madrid, dijo que tenía el timbre inconfundible de la verdad y que escuchándole no quedaba ninguna duda de que el hombre decía la verdad. Hoy que cumplimos el 80 aniversario de Antonio Machado, conmemoramos también este año el 80 aniversario del final de la Guerra Civil y del exilio republicano español, y como presidenta de la Fundación Pablo Iglesias no quería dejar de recordarlo. Sin más dilación, vamos a empezar. Voy a poner el cronómetro porque esto va de ser muy eficientes y creo que tengo exactamente 6 minutos y medio para hacer la presentación. Si no, Ernst me va a regañar. Sí, él sabe por qué lo digo. a ver dónde tengo el aquí. Start. Vamos a hablar de ciudades. Este es el tema del primer panel, que es Urban Ecosystem, Housing and Energy Efficiency. ¿Cómo vamos a transformar las ciudades en los próximos años? Primero, la vivienda es un derecho humano. Todo el mundo está de acuerdo, pero todos estaremos de acuerdo en que es un derecho humano que no está satisfecho en nuestras sociedades en Europa. Es un derecho humano al que todo el mundo tiene derecho, pero que no todo el mundo tiene capacidad para acceder a él. ¿Quién necesita ayuda para acceder a la vivienda? Todos diríamos rápidamente. En primer lugar, los desempleados, ¿vale? Las personas que tienen bajos ingresos. Los jóvenes que están en situación precaria laboral. Las familias numerosas, esta es de los años 60. Las familias monoparentales. Las personas mayores, muchas de ellas no pueden pagar los gastos de su vivienda, no pueden calentarse en invierno, no pueden encender la luz. Las personas con alguna capacidad diferente. Las mujeres víctimas de violencia de género. Homeless, gente sin hogar. Inmigrantes, migrantes. Personas en riesgo de exclusión social o marginalidad. O personas en riesgo de exclusión racial. Por lo tanto, hay una enorme capa de sociedad que requiere nuestra ayuda para poder acceder a una vivienda. Pero a cualquier vivienda no, a una vivienda digna y adecuada. ¿Qué es una vivienda digna y adecuada? Necesita, según el consenso internacional, en primer lugar, seguridad en la tenencia, tener un título que les acredite como usuarios de la vivienda. En segundo lugar, tienen que tener acceso a los servicios básicos de saneamiento, servicios públicos. Tiene que ser asequible, que no suponga una carga para los ingresos de la familia. Tiene que ser, obviamente, digna, no puede tener carácter de infravivienda. Tiene que ser accesible para todas las personas con capacidades diferentes. Tiene que tener una localización adecuada y tiene que tener una buena educación cultural. Y esto volveremos a hablar después al hablar de gentrificación. Además, la vivienda es necesaria para poder acceder a otra serie de derechos fundamentales, como por ejemplo la inviolabilidad del domicilio, como por ejemplo las relaciones personales y familiares. Sin vivienda no hay posibilidad del desarrollo personal. Sin vivienda no hay posibilidad de acceso a unos buenos servicios de salud. Sin vivienda no hay posibilidad de acceso a un medio ambiente saludable. Y sin vivienda no hay derecho al ocio, a la cultura y a la educación. Por lo tanto, la vivienda es un pilar básico para poder ejercer otros muchos derechos fundamentales reconocidos por nuestras constituciones y por la Declaración Europea de Derechos Humanos. ¿Cuáles son los principales retos de las políticas públicas de vivienda? Muy rápidamente. Tenemos, en primer lugar, la desigualdad en el acceso y la dificultad para acceder y mantenerla. En segundo lugar, la demografía, el envejecimiento de la población, los flujos migratorios, la dificultad de las personas jóvenes para poder acceder a su primera vivienda y, por tanto, a una vida digna y, por tanto, a desarrollar un proyecto vital. Y, por supuesto, la sostenibilidad, el medio ambiente, la eficiencia energética, las ciudades sostenibles, la economía circular. Evidentemente, la vivienda está claramente recogida en los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible 2030. Básicamente es el objetivo 11, pero también está relacionado con el objetivo 1, que es la erradicación de la pobreza, con el objetivo 3, que tiene que ver con la salud, el objetivo 7, que tiene que ver con la energía y, por supuesto, ciudades y pueblos sostenibles, que es el objetivo 11. Esto es simplemente la evolución de la población urbana. Tenemos que en el año 2020 el 56% de la población mundial será urbana, en el año 2030 será el 60%, en el año 2040 el 63%, en el año 2050 será el 66% de la población mundial será urbana. ¿Qué pasa después? ¿A qué tipo de ciudades vamos? ¿Cómo vamos a evitar, como personas que vamos a vivir masivamente en ciudades, esto? ¿Alguien se atreve a adivinar qué ciudad es? ¿Nos gusta? Ernst sabe, efectivamente. Es una distopía, pero probablemente habremos pensado que esa ciudad realmente puede existir. Habrá que evitar que lleguemos a ese tipo de ciudades invivibles. Hemos hablado siempre, en Europa, de las ciudades densas, compactas. Fuimos de la ciudad industrial a la ciudad del conocimiento, pero no podemos pararnos ahí. Ahora tenemos que ir de la ciudad compacta a la ciudad resiliente. Esto es Barcelona, y yo creo que es un claro ejemplo de ciudad resiliente. Hablando de rehabilitación, renovación urbana y regeneración. Esto es un ejemplo real de Zaragoza, de cómo una vivienda que es infravivienda, a través de un proceso de rehabilitación energética, puede llegar a ahorrar el 70% de su factura y convertirse en eso. Es el mismo edificio. rehabilitado. O bien las grandes operaciones después del proceso de renovación al que fue objeto. Como veis, se ganan espacios públicos y se gana espacio para los peatones. Los problemas de regeneración urbana, en primer lugar, son sociales. Todas las grandes operaciones de regeneración urbana tienen que tener en cuenta que hay personas que habitan esas viviendas que tienen que ser realojadas y que tienen que tener derecho a volver a sus viviendas dignas. El acompañamiento social es imprescindible para que el proceso de rehabilitación y regeneración urbana sea eficiente. En relación con el acceso a los servicios públicos, en las ciudades no existe un buen vecindario, no existe una buena calidad de la vivienda si no se tiene acceso a los servicios de salud, de educación, de seguridad, de transporte público, a los sistemas de trabajo y al ocio. Y los servicios y los espacios públicos, que son clave para la buena convivencia. Los espacios públicos son esenciales para una buena calidad de la vivienda. Estos son unos cuantos espacios públicos exteriores que reconoceréis muchos porque es mi ciudad, es Madrid. Y para los madrileños esto es especial, es un detalle especial para vosotros, que vosotros sabréis perfectamente qué es. Hay espacios públicos interiores que son básicos también para la convivencia en las ciudades, como las bibliotecas, los teatros. Esto es un teatro reconvertido. Por supuesto, los museos. Y sin olvidarnos de lo que hasta ahora se ha convertido en la plaza pública, que son los centros comerciales. Pero las ciudades están vivas y cambian. Y esto es una pequeña evolución del corazón de Madrid, de la Plaza del Callao. Esta es la Plaza del Callao en el año 50. Esta es la Plaza del Callao en el año 60. No es la misma película, es diferente película. Esta es la Plaza del Callao en el año 70, en el año 85, en el año 2010. Y esta es la Plaza del Callao en la actualidad. Es la misma plaza que se ha ido adaptando a las necesidades y la vivienda de los ciudadanos. ¿Qué hacemos con las ciudades y cómo adaptamos las ciudades al envejecimiento de la población? Esta es una idea de una exposición de una arquitecta española que proponía que las calles fueran flexibles, que las calles se utilizaran de diferente forma según la hora del día, que las aceras no sean igual de anchas a todas horas ni las carreteras igual de anchas a todas horas, sino que podamos adaptar la ciudad a la vida de cada momento del día. Y esto tiene mucho que ver con cómo adaptamos la ciudad a una población cada vez más envejecida, que va a necesitar apoyo para la accesibilidad, a las personas que tienen discapacidad. Esto no es ayudar a las personas que tienen movilidad reducida, esa rampa es impracticable y seguro que todos hemos visto esas circunstancias. Las personas, a ver cómo voy, let me check it, ok. What's happening? Is stop? So, esta es la accesibilidad, esto es una foto real, esto es una foto muy explícita sobre que las ciudades no están hechas desde la perspectiva de género, no están hechas desde la perspectiva de la corresponsabilidad. Y las personas sin hogar. Esto es un ejemplo de la llamada arquitectura defensiva, que pone barreras en los mobiliario urbano para evitar que las personas sin hogar o las personas que en la calle las puedan usar. Es realmente elocuente y terrible cómo se puede convertir la ciudad en un ecosistema tan hostil para las personas menos desfavorecidas. Y, por supuesto, la eficiencia energética. Este es uno de los retos a los que vamos a dedicar parte del día de hoy. Cómo un mismo edificio puede ahorrar, ya os decía antes, que a través de la rehabilitación se puede ahorrar hasta el 70% de la energía. Instalación de ascensores por dentro o por fuera de los inmuebles para mejorar la accesibilidad. Instalación de paneles solares o de formas de energía renovables y de energías limpias. Por supuesto, instalaciones para coches eléctricos, para coches no contaminantes. Y, por supuesto, la domótica, la electrificación y el Internet of Things en las casas. Y esto es un ejercicio que quiero proponeros en un minuto. Simplemente adivinad en qué ciudad europea estamos. Let's go. Who are we? Where are we? Can you guess it? Es un proceso de gentrificación que nos impide reconocer el alma de los centros de nuestras ciudades. La gentrificación tiene una clara componente social que se da en todas partes del mundo, no solamente en Madrid y probablemente en muchas de las ciudades europeas en las que vivimos. Tiene la derivada de los apartamentos turísticos. ¿Qué pasa con los precios de los alquileres? ¿Qué pasa con los turistas paseando por nuestros centros de las ciudades? Con los vecinos originarios de sus barrios. ¿Y qué pasa con los precios de los alquileres? poor people please live quietly. Un ejemplo solamente de lo que tiene que ser el futuro de la economía de las ciudades, la economía circular. Debajo tenemos la economía lineal, arriba la economía circular. Ahora mismo estamos en el centro, que solamente se recicla y se recupera parte de los productos y los gastos, tanto biológicos como técnicos de las ciudades, y a dónde tenemos que ir. Las ciudades consumen el 3% de la superficie global, pero el 75% de los recursos y el 60 y 80% de los gases de efecto invernadero. Por lo tanto, las ciudades entran de lleno en el proyecto de economía circular o será imposible tener un futuro sostenible. Y finalmente, Smart Cities. Son inevitables, la tecnología nos ayuda en la educación, nos ayuda en la salud, nos ayuda en controlar los niveles de polución. Pero ¿qué pasa si la tecnología falla? ¿Qué pasa cuando la tecnología falle? ¿Queremos ser este tipo de ciudadanos? Can you recognize yourself? They are crossing the street, just looking at the screen. And this is real. Esto es China, que ha instalado 20 millones de cámaras para poder reconocer a las personas que circulan por las ciudades y poder tener un control sobre incluso sobre su orientación política. ¿Queremos ir a eso? Y os dejo con esta pregunta. Esta es una frase de Shakespeare, de la obra Coriolano. Y Shakespeare pregunta, "What is the city but the people?" True, the people are the city. Esto es todo. Creo que os he dejado una enorme cantidad de preguntas para la reflexión y con esto vamos a dar paso al primer panel. Muchas gracias.
Please come up to the stage. For those that don't have the microphones yet, you can now swap them with our speakers that have just left the stage. So my name's Charlotte. I'm from FEPS and I'm going to be moderating this panel this morning. I'm just going to post some of my papers while I get sorted. I first have to congratulate Beatriz, because it wasn't easy to do the Fecha Crucha. Well done. You did it very well. I know it's not easy. So that was good, and it was a fantastic introduction into this topic. What better person to introduce it, actually? So that's fantastic. As we're running a bit late, I'm not going to do any more introductions to this topic because I think it's already been done. So we're missing one speaker, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Preso, yep. But yeah, I'd just like to mention that we were with Frans Timmermans the other day, who's going to be elected as the common candidate shortly. And also at a Call to Europe we had this week in Paris, and he was saying he's been doing, some different tours around different cities in Europe, and he said that actually he couldn't believe that housing is the #1 issue that keeps coming up. And of course, there is no particular EU mandate for housing, but we know that there's a lot of EU policies that do affect housing. So I think that this is a good way to link our different Call to Europes that we've been doing this year, especially into this session today. So we have on the panel, I need to get my names. So we have Mercedes Gonzalez, who is currently the spokesperson for the urban planning of the Socialist Group in the Madrid City Council. I hope I've said that right from the translation. And Secretary General of the Socialists in Barajas, Madrid. And then we have Adrian Joyce, who's going to be the second person to speak, who is the Secretary General of EuroACE, which is the Architects Council of Europe. And he's also campaign director of the Renovate Europe campaign for the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to have Michaela, who sat next to him, who from Vienna, which is, of course, known for its social housing success story, let's say. She's currently coordinator of the EU Urban Agenda Housing Partnership and director of the Vienna House in Brussels, and also a member of Eurocities. So she's going to tell us a bit more about her work today. And then we have Özgür, who is the managing director of the Brussels office of GWG, GDW in English, so that's Housing Germany. And he's also former Vice President of the Housing Europe and is currently Chairman of the Urban Development Committee in Housing Europe. And then we have, to round up, we have Breso Matos Marcos, who is General Director of Orenza Group, and she's going to tell us more about, is that correct? Yeah. And you're going to tell us more about your experiences as well. So I'll first give the floor, I first need to just explain the concept, of course. So as you can see, we've got 2 spare chairs here. The idea is that you can already think about some questions that you want to pose to these people who are here today, and we want to have as much interaction with you guys as possible, because Call to Europe is not just about listening, it's about letting your voice be heard and being interactive with one another. So we're going to firstly have around 5 minutes from each of the speakers to give a first presentation, and then we're going to let people come up to the chairs, so we call this fishbowl format. We have microphones, so when you come up, have your question ready, but please, of course, be aware that other people will also want to ask questions. But when you're sat in the chair, that means that you can ask a question, and then if someone else wants to come and ask a question, you also come to the chair. So we're going to kind of do a bit of a round.
Can we leave?
And then we'll get started. So please, Mercedes.
Bad format, I don't like it.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos y a todas, y quiero agradecer sinceramente la invitación de la Fundación Pablo Iglesias y en concreto de Beatriz Corredor. Yo soy una pequeña, en todos los sentidos, concejala del Ayuntamiento de Madrid, que para mí es un enorme orgullo tener que hablar hoy de vivienda en Madrid delante de 2 referentes, como son 2 exministras de vivienda, como Beatriz Corredor y Cristina Narbona, que son las que verdaderamente saben de vivienda en este país y en esta ciudad, ambas concejalas del Ayuntamiento de Madrid. Como tengo solo 5 minutos, me gustaría hacer simplemente una foto. España es un país muy particular y Madrid es una ciudad muy particular, y en materia de vivienda tenemos muchísimas particularidades, y una de ellas es el enorme peso de la propiedad de la vivienda a lo largo de decenas, de décadas, de gobiernos de la derecha que nos han educado a los españoles a ser propietarios de vivienda. Esto nos ha llevado a que en Madrid el 75,7% de las viviendas son en propiedad, fruto, insisto, de una ideología absolutamente conservadora. En Madrid, la Comunidad de Madrid, que es quien tiene las competencias de vivienda, lleva 24 años gobernando el Partido Popular y 26 años, hasta hace poco, ha gobernado ininterrumpidamente la derecha en Madrid. Las administraciones no han invertido, fruto de su ideología, en un parque público de vivienda en alquiler. Y si analizamos los datos disponibles del Eurostat con respecto a España, el alquiler social supone 3 viviendas por cada 1000 habitantes, mientras que la media europea roza las 40 viviendas. En Madrid los datos son aún peores, fruto de eso que les he comentado de los gobiernos de la derecha. Apenas el 1,5% del parque inmobiliario de Madrid está destinada a vivienda de alquiler público, frente al 35% en Ámsterdam, el 32% de Viena, el 29% de Berlín o el 25% de París. En la actualidad, la vivienda en Madrid está siendo uno de los hechos diferenciales en lo que se refiere a la cohesión social de esta ciudad. Y será, desde luego, el reto de cualquier partido político que quiera gobernar esta ciudad, por múltiples factores. Primero, por lo que les he dicho, porque no hay un parque público de vivienda en alquiler. Segundo, por un incremento, lo ha comentado mi compañera Beatriz, un incremento desmedido de los precios del alquiler, una creciente oferta de la vivienda de uso turístico, las ventas de viviendas que se han ido produciendo de aquellas personas que han ido reteniendo durante el proceso de recesión, y un fenómeno muy peligroso que es la compraventa de viviendas con fines de inversión por grandes tenedores de vivienda como son las SICAV y los fondos de inversión. Y a eso tenemos que unir una realidad social, y es que en España durante muchos años nos han condenado a ser trabajadores pobres. Y los trabajadores pobres llevan a que el 40% de los asalariados no pueden tener acceso a una vivienda en propiedad, ni siquiera se pueden plantear el acceso a la vivienda en alquiler. Esta realidad implica una política imprescindible en la ciudad de Madrid y, desde luego, en todo el territorio, que es un programa amplio de oferta pública, el desarrollo, la apuesta real de un parque público de vivienda en alquiler. En Madrid, el Gobierno del Ayuntamiento de Madrid propuso 4.100 viviendas, de las que, desgraciadamente, apenas cuando acaben los 4 años van a llegar a 100. Y me gustaría también, dentro de esta pequeña foto, hablar de rehabilitación. En Madrid, la edad de la edificación de nuestros edificios es tremendamente antigua. Más del 30% del parque de vivienda tiene más de 50 años. Y el 42% se construyó entre los años 60 y los años 80 durante el boom de la inmigración interior, con una baja calidad constructiva y nulas medidas de eficiencia energética, como ha comentado mi compañera. Por eso el Ayuntamiento de Madrid puso en marcha un programa que nosotros, desde luego, compartimos íntegramente su filosofía, que es un programa que llamaron el Plan Madre, Madrid Regenera, Madrid Rehabilita. Están destinados a 119 áreas de rehabilitación, que supone el 38% de la población municipal. Podría haber llegado, si se hubiera ejecutado bien y hubiera sido eficiente, a 1.211.000 personas. Desgraciadamente, es una de las políticas que nosotros, en el apoyo al Gobierno de Manuela Carmena, hemos apostado, pero la mala gestión ha dejado que este tipo de ayudas imprescindibles para la regeneración y la rehabilitación del parque de vivienda de esta ciudad sea renovado. Con estas ayudas y con el complemento del plan estatal, que a continuación detallaré, podríamos haber completado el 100% de la subvención, de la inversión que tendrían que haber hecho los ciudadanos de Madrid en regenerar sus viviendas. Si hubiéramos completado el Plan Madre, que si alguien quiere algún detalle a continuación podremos desarrollar, con el Plan Estatal de Vivienda, que es un plan dirigido por el Ministerio de Fomento, que en Madrid está abarcando a 2.058 viviendas con una inversión de 48 millones de euros, de las que ya se han beneficiado 3.159 familias, conseguiríamos renovar un parque, como ya les he dicho, absolutamente envejecido y apostar por una política que es uno de los grandes retos, en nuestra opinión. El primero, la apuesta por un parque público de vivienda en alquiler, y el segundo, la regeneración y la rehabilitación. La rehabilitación, es verdad que ya les he dicho, y la regeneración es una de las políticas que el Gobierno de Manuela Carmena ha olvidado. Esas áreas degradadas, esas áreas absolutamente deterioradas que no necesitan chapa y pintura, no sé cómo van a traducir esto, que lo que necesitan es derribar y construir. Madrid tiene una ciudad, insisto, absolutamente envejecida y aparte con muy mala calidad constructiva. Esas políticas de rehabilitación las hicimos los socialistas cuando gobernamos la Comunidad de Madrid, que convertimos infraviviendas, que convertimos chabolas en auténticas viviendas dignas. Y ese era el reto de la izquierda en el Ayuntamiento de Madrid. Y luego, para concluir, sí que me gustaría, como ya les he dicho al inicio, esta política de educarnos a todos los españoles, a todos los madrileños en la propiedad. Tenemos que ser propietarios. Debemos, desde las instituciones públicas y sobre todo desde los partidos políticos de izquierdas, cambiarla, educarla y revertirla. Debemos intentar agarrarnos a ese artículo 47 que tiene la Constitución española y hacer una política que convierta la vivienda en un derecho. Y para eso necesitamos políticas a nivel estatal, a nivel autonómico, que insisto, que son las que tienen las competencias, y a nivel local. Un parque municipal de vivienda pública en alquiler que nos dé a todos la posibilidad de ese derecho. Y lo segundo, rehabilitar y regenerar para que ese derecho sean viviendas dignas. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Mercedes. That was a very good way of outlining the progressive priorities, but of course explaining what the challenges are today in Madrid, the city where we are, and the opportunities also that are available to us. I'm now going to pass the floor to Adrian, who's going to talk about housing and also energy efficiency, very importantly. Please, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Thank you to the FEPS for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on such a stage. It's a first for me, because I am not a card-carrying member of the Socialist Party in any country in Europe. But I'm very pleased to speak with you today. So I'm very happy to be here, and I hope we'll have plenty of interaction. It started already, which is great. A slight correction to my CV. I am actually Secretary General of the European Alliance of Companies for Energy Efficiency in Buildings. And those companies employ directly more than 300,000 workers in Europe. And they work to make the products and services that go into very highly energy efficient and energy performing buildings. I wanted to start by looking a little at the big picture. The big picture for me today is the degradation of our climate, the huge, nefast and very painful impacts that climate change is having on our societies. For me, it's the largest political issue that faces society both in Europe and globally, but I feel very confident that Europe has the right starting point to be the global leader in how to overcome these challenges that we face in climate degradation. And urbanization, cities are an absolute front runner in how we can demonstrate how to mitigate those effects of climate change. I agree that urbanization was a very good putachuka at the start, that urbanization constantly changes and evolves. That's how it should be. Urban societies are societies that reflect the moment we are at in our civilizations. So if a city does not evolve or change, then we have stopped evolving and changing. So without urbanization that is dynamic, that is listening to the people that live in the city, that is listening to society, we are on the road to failure. So urbanization, a crucial skill, but it's one that in the past has been dogged far too much by what I call two-dimensional policies. I don't know how many of you are from the built environment professionals. I'm an architect myself by training, but for far too long in the 20th century, we talked about zones. Put all the industry in one place, put all the housing in another place, put all the shops together in another place. This is unsustainable development. And that's when we came to then talk about compact cities, about having proximity, about making it more economical and easier to have good public services because you had enough people to make them viable commercially. But however, even that's not enough anymore. We need now to find a way of having cities that are self-sustaining, I would say. So resilient and self-sustaining. And in that perspective, energy efficiency is a crucially important tool, I think, that we can use. And that is what I spend 100% of my time doing in Brussels, where I live and work. I spend my time trying to get energy efficiency first into all the policies across Europe. So why is it important? It's important because buildings in Europe consume 40% of all the energy we produce. Most of that energy is produced with fossil fuels, giving CO2 emissions or methane emissions, causing climate degradation and climate change. On top of that, we spend about 90% of our time inside buildings. We're either in a building where we're asleep or living, or we're in a building where we're exercising, or we're in a building where we're at work. But we all spend about 90% of our time in buildings. The way to check if you're in that category is ask yourself this question: have I spent 2.5 hours out in the open today? That's 2.5 hours is 10% of the day. I guarantee you most of us do not. So think about that in the future. It means the buildings must be, and here I come back to the messages today, of the highest possible quality. They must be spaces that make people feel comfortable, that make them feel healthy, that make them feel productive. And without those qualities and features in our housing, we're also on a road to nowhere. So what I suppose we're calling for is integrated approaches to how we think about cities, and integrated approaches about how we think about the buildings in the cities, the buildings that make up the physical infrastructure of the cities. And maybe, I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I'll come to kind of round off, because when we look to see where are the political opportunities for member state governments across Europe, we look to the EU directives. I sit in Brussels, so of course I look to the EU level. And there has been a recent revision of the Buildings Directive, which now requires every member state to prepare what's called a long-term renovation strategy, which is a strategy linked to an action plan that will transform the buildings of Europe to nearly zero energy buildings by 2050. That means buildings that are all highly energy efficient, that are decarbonized, meaning the energy they use is coming from renewable sources. And that challenge is absolutely enormous. From where I sit, it's the social challenge of the next 3 decades. Because the rate and volume of work that has to be done will create huge, innovative, job creation, industrial opportunities that Europe is really well placed to grasp. And I would put it to the progressives that we cannot have a progressive Europe if we don't have progressive housing and urban policies that will bring us to that point in 2050. So I urge you to work with the national governments where you've come from, because I know I'm not just speaking to a Spanish audience, to make sure that the long-term renovation strategies are devised with your input to lead us to a much better environment in the future. And I want to finish maybe on a slightly controversial note. In my role, I'm entirely apolitical. And this is something I wanted to say to this audience in particular. The time for us and them is over. We have to be talking about we. So these policies I'm talking about must be across party lines, no matter how difficult it is to do that. If we do not agree between left and right, centre and green, we are not going to achieve the kind of societal transformation that's needed. So I will be going around Europe on a kind of capitals tour, speaking to all political colours, and I will bring the same message to all of them. I guarantee you it is harder to agree across divergent viewpoints, but I also guarantee you the results are better and more long-lasting. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Adrian. That was a great call to Europe. So remember that we need a progressive housing policy. And also remember, if you're tweeting today, our hashtag is Call to Europe, and also Ni un paso atrás, no step back. Yes, absolutely. The housing performance index is very important for all of us. We can then now measure our performance of energy in the houses, which is, of course, this nice, colourful graph you get if you're looking for a house. It shows you A, B, C, D, and a lot further, I'm sure, plus A as well. So this is very important. I'm now going to give the floor to Michaela, who's going to tell us about her work. Please.
I take the floor, I take a picture. Okay? Smile. Thank you. Okay, you've heard I'm coming from Vienna, and I brought with me a little exhibition. Thanks to all the people who helped me put it on the wall. It's an exhibition about the Vienna model of social housing, which basically started 100 years ago, when after First World War I, socialists came into power for the first time to govern the city. And it's just a development that says that it was a time, of course, of misery, of exploitation, of big diseases. Tuberculosis was called the Viennese disease because it was very, very common in Vienna in the change of the century that people were dying from tuberculosis in Vienna. So from a situation of big misery, we now are at the state where we have nearly 2/3 of our population in the city living in municipal, this is public, or publicly funded housing. So this is mostly cooperative. 2/3. And we never did sell off our municipal housing. We always said keep those 220,000 flats, which house 500,000, 500,000 people, are living in what we call the Gemeindebau, the municipal housing in Vienna. And I think that the part of this success story leads to something where Vienna is known to be the city with the best quality of life in all the studies around, and Mercer says it, and the people in Vienna also say it. Even if Viennese are known to be a little bit, you know, rouspéteurs, how do you call that in English? Like, but in fact, they are very happy to live in such a beautiful city where things are working. So why are they working, and what can we learn on European level from this model? And I've been the coordinator of the housing partnership in the frame of the urban agenda for the EU, which is a quite new format for the last 3 years. And we have been putting together cities, member states, EU institutions, and important stakeholders like Özgür is representing Housing Europe and the International Union of Tenants to work together to develop on what do cities need to create better housing for their citizens. And that includes, of course, what you mentioned, energy efficiency and the whole way, how do we cope with climate change in our cities? You quite right mentioned the numbers. But I can add a few other numbers. I can add, for instance, the numbers of 82 million Europeans that cannot afford housing anymore, that are living in really difficult conditions, unhealthy conditions, that are living, that they just simply cannot afford it anymore. And this is something which is unacceptable, especially also for the progressive family, I must say. And of course, this is a phenomenon that mostly occurs in cities. Not to talk about the loss of quality of life of a lot of people who have to commute, because you lose 1, 2, 3 hours a day because your job, the place where you work, is so far disconnected from the place where you live. And also this is has a negative effect, of course, on our climate and environment, because think of all the cars which are going out each city each morning and each evening, and you will not have time to spend with your family. You miss a lot of quality of life as well through that, if you cannot afford to live in your own city anymore. If you cannot afford, for instance, what you said, to, example, buy the house which your parents were buying 40 years ago or 50 years ago. It's not possible anymore to buy the house in a person's lifetime, to earn the money to pay back the loan for the house that your parents have been owning for where they grew you up. So what are the reasons why do we have a housing crisis in Europe? And I must say we have a housing crisis in Europe. And the interest in the room is, of course, showing evidence of this. The housing crisis is due to many reasons, but one is that we did not invest in the past 10 years in the building and construction of new housing and reconstruction of old. We missed, since the beginning of the global financial crisis, each year in Europe, 60 billion euros, which before were spent on affordable housing, and that sums up to 600 billion. Just small numbers, but imagine what this means for the economy. Imagine what this means for people who cannot afford and cannot find affordable housing anymore. So we missed a lot of investment. Why did we do? Of course, especially cities were under pressure financially. City budgets were very, very heavily attacked. They were even obliged to pay, individual aids to people instead of investing the money in the construction of something which would help them on the long term. And there is evidence about, there is a clear correlation in our city budgets between, in the moment you stop investing in the construction, you will start investing in the social assistance. And it's very clear that one part of it is not sustainable. Yeah? It's of course important to help the families, but it will not help you in the long run to provide for what we have in Vienna, a big housing stock with controlled rents, with regulated rents, with tenants' protections, with systems to also settle disputes, low threshold, if there is any, because this is also a way, and we are in the progressive family here, to control the market. And I'm quite sure that the European Commission does not like the Vienna model, but they can't help to be impressed by it. Yeah? So, and it's no wonder that me from Vienna have been coordinating such a European project. We have the reputation and we have the skills, but what we want to do is share that. And I would like to share a few things with you. What is needed on European level, and I'm ready then. I think that one of the problems of the rising housing costs is in the construction sector, that's true. Another one is a big problem is the prices of land. And if we don't get that into our focus, we will not succeed in creating affordable housing solutions for all our citizens. Because today, being homeless is not a question of you have a mental disease or you have a problem with alcohol or drugs. Being homeless is a question of the middle class. In the meantime, the housing crisis has arrived with the middle class, so we should really shift, and what you said is right, housing is a human right, and this means that we have to provide affordable housing for all. And the reason why housing is also so incredibly expensive, we have, and this is a call to the European legislator, we have a lot of mergers going on in the real estate sector where housing is not a human right. Housing is a commodity. Housing is a good that we can trade, a service that you can trade. So they're not talking about flats or units where people live and want to raise their family and have a happy life. They're talking about things where between 3 and 5 years they have to make big profit. And we are talking, as cities, we are talking about 30 to 50 years when we finance something. So this is a bit the difference, and this is where I don't agree with it. This is where they have the we and the us and the them. Yeah. So because them, they are counting in profits for 3 to 5 years. I am counting for people's lifetime and quality of life for 30 and 50 years and longer. So this is the difference. This is why the EU has to do something about those big mergers. There is a trillion dollar market we are talking about, and this is really creating a lot of trouble for us in the cities because it's raising the land prices, it's stealing building ground, it's literally stealing building ground, it's causing evictions, it's causing forced evictions, also evictions by renovations, luxury renovations and energy renovations, and this is where I think we really have to do something as in a joint exercise as a progressive family. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. And absolutely, I think that builds on nicely from what Adrian was saying, that we need kind of long-term strategies. It's not about the them and the us, but we need common solutions that aren't short-term, but long-term for lasting a generation, let's say. I'm going to move the microphone in preparation because you've heard 3 panelists now. So we're preparing, please prepare your questions. We're preparing the microphones for you so you can already think about what you're going to come and say when you come and if you want to come and take a chair later. But now I'm going to give the floor to Özge, who's going to present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. As Housing Europe, we are honored to be part of the conference today, and my gratitude goes to Maria João and Ernst, and of course to you. Housing Europe, just to explain you our federation, Housing Europe is the Federation of Cooperative, Public and Social Housing. We represent a network of 45 national and regional housing providers, which gather more than 43,000 public, social and cooperative companies. And altogether, they manage more than 26 million dwellings, homes, and that is about 11% of the existing housing stock in Europe. And we give to more than 100 million people a home in Europe. And our core mission is to provide access to decent and affordable housing for all communities which are economically, socially and environmentally sustainable, and where all are enabled to reach their full potential. That is, how shall I say, the marketing place for Housing Europe. But what are the main challenges we are facing today? We have already heard from Adrian and also from Michaela core issues. The first challenge what we see in Housing Europe is, of course, the housing exclusion that was explained. In most member states for which recent data are available, homelessness is on the rise. Homelessness increased over the past years in a majority of member states, like in Austria, in Czech, in Germany, in Spain, in Greece, France, Hungary, Ireland, and so on, Italy. Furthermore, and that is also mentioned already, prices have outstripped wages since a very long time, and in many metropolitan areas, the cost of housing is out of control. Just as an example from UK, If since 1971 the price for groceries had risen as dramatically as the cost of housing, a chicken would cost today 61 euro. The second challenge is energy poverty. More than 52 million people cannot keep their home adequately warm. More than 161 million people are facing disproportionate housing expenditure, and more than 87 million people are living in poor quality dwellings, and almost 42 million people face arrears in their utility bills. And just to remind you, we have 500 million people more or less living in Europe, and that is a huge quantity. And the third challenge is housing overburden. Housing overburden rate among people at risk of poverty has increased significantly compared to pre-crisis level, from 35.9% in 2005 to almost 40% in 2015. Share of poor households paying too much for housing has doubled or more in Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Greece. Social, economical, and environmental challenges are linked. We need more affordable homes for low-income groups or no-income families, but we need those homes to be energy efficient to allow those families to spend their income on food and education instead of heating bills. And what does Housing Europe do on that? Social, cooperative, and public housing providers have been particularly very active in this field as they manage a considerable housing stock compared to private landlords. Our members have a much better decision-making capacity than condominiums, even though they may be limited by financial resources or local and local governance decisions. Moreover, our companies, they managed, as Michaela mentioned that, they manage in the long term, for 30, 50 years, the housing they build, which is an incentive to reduce future operational and maintenance costs. If you take the example of Germany, housing and real estate companies have modernized more than 60% of their stock. And from 1990 to 2050, the total average of consumption of final energy in the affordable housing stock will decrease by 57% according to the forecast. Primary energy demand will decrease by 77%, and greenhouse gas emissions will be reduced by 83%. But Germany is not an exemption. If you look at France, in France, public housing companies are modernizing 7 times more than private landlords. And generally speaking, there are in the EU fewer poorly insulated dwellings in 2019 than ever before. And the trends will go on in this current context. Beyond the direct effect on energy efficiency, on energy performance of dwellings, energy efficiency measures indeed help to save cost in other policy areas. For instance, in Northern Ireland, the estimated cost of eliminating or renovating the most energy-consuming houses would be nearly of 600 million euros. At the same time, the estimated annual savings in health service through better housing would be of 40 million euro per year, which means that it would take approximately 14 to 15 years to amortize the total investment costs through the savings in the health service. This only reflects the co-benefits on health, but there are many other co-benefits. Today we are facing the tough challenge of increasing the number of energy efficient and at the same time more affordable homes in the new build and also in the refurbishment dwellings, while more energy efficient homes are more expensive to build and could prove less affordable for the residents, at least in the short run. But what can be done to solve this dilemma? What we propose is, firstly, adequate public, private and market finance. For both, renovation and new construction is needed. The European Union and other international organizations like the EIB can be very useful as they can provide the necessary expertise to set up new schemes and regulations. The European Investment Bank can also provide new lending facilities, offering, for instance, subsidized loans or guarantees, and further develop the approach of sustainable finance in the building sector. Secondly, a well-functioning construction sector. Lowering cost of construction of new affordable homes is a key issue, and the construction sector has a role to play. To give you an example, we could develop a European exchange program and procurement practices and the use of construction techniques and materials with the aim to decrease the cost of new constructions. Some examples, for instance, combo hoist in Sweden, serial construction in Germany, or energy sprung in Netherlands are good examples, and I'm happy to discuss these examples later on if that is a possibility. And thirdly, research is needed. We need the continuation of applied research to develop affordable technologies for the improvement of energy efficiency and renewable energies in the affordable housing sector. The research community needs to work more with affordable housing providers and small and medium-sized enterprises to further develop, for instance, insulation materials or devices to better monitor or reduce the energy consumption. And fourthly, training. There is a constant need to educate housing professionals and tenants by training to increase their capacity to benefit from the energy transition. A greater use of the European Social Fund in that case is very much welcome in this field. And the end, to get all these ingredients, there is a need for an impulse from policies. And we hope that the new MEPs and commissioners after the summer in the European Union will see how inevitable investment in affordable housing is if the EU is to progress. More affordable and energy efficient homes in the EU will help Europeans to get what they regularly asked for in the recent national and regional elections. Better and safer lives. Housing is as important as education or health when determining the quality of life of a community, of a country, or of a continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Özge. That relates nicely to the kind of European local level of what we can do at European level, how it can help at local level. And then that brings us nicely to our, we started with a Spanish host country and we're ending actually with our Spanish representatives today. So Breso, the floor is yours. Can I just say, again, if anybody wants to start coming up, you know, quietly, but you can come and sit in the seats to prepare yourselves for questions later. Breso, please, the floor is yours.
Bueno, lo primero quería agradecer a la Fundación Pablo Iglesias y a Beatriz Corredor por esta invitación. Voy a aprovechar, creo que voy a cambiar mi presentación porque bueno, han sido muy completos todas las ponencias anteriores de todo lo que son los retos de las ciudades, de lo que son las políticas que se pueden llevar a cabo, pero he oído menos, y creo que es muy importante, lo que es la participación ciudadana. Y vengo aquí como ciudadano, no como técnico, que sería la otra posición, así que voy a pasar muy rápidamente unas para colocarme, porque todo esto ya se ha hablado aquí. O sea, yo creo que las ciudades ahora mismo, el ciudadano ha perdido muchísima confianza en sus instituciones, tanto a nivel nacional como a nivel europeo también, ya que estamos, y mantienen, o sea, lo que sí que mantenemos los ciudadanos es cierto compromiso con nuestra ciudad. Entonces sí que os pido, y esto es un llamamiento que os hago aquí a todos desde esta política, que la forma de conseguir nuestra confianza, la forma de volver a conseguir nuestro compromiso, pasa por nuestra participación. En este sentido también los grandes retos que tenemos para enfrentarnos al cambio climático, enfrentarnos a este mundo que hemos agotado, pasan por el compromiso del ciudadano. Por mucho que le obliguemos o le pidamos que haga cosas, si los ciudadanos no tenemos ese compromiso, no vamos a llegar a ningún lado. Entonces, en ese sentido, yo creo que hasta ahora el modelo urbano, la planificación urbana, es un proceso de arriba abajo. Se ha pensado desde la política, se ha pensado desde los técnicos, se ha tenido en cuenta, apenas se ha tenido en cuenta la ciudad, su contexto geográfico, su contexto patrimonial, cultural. Se ha impuesto a los ciudadanos y al final hemos llegado a unas ciudades que han ido haciéndose muy homogéneas entre sí y han ido perdiendo su propia capacidad, se han ido inadecuando, ¿no?, a los usos a los que ahora mismo estamos. Entonces, mi propuesta es que empecemos de abajo arriba, que desde la diversidad de usos, desde la diversidad de necesidades, desde el género. Hemos tenido hasta ahora una planificación muy patriarcal, muy poco enfocada al uso de la ciudad por lo que es la mujer y las tareas que han recaído tradicionalmente en la mujer. Entonces, todas esas cosas las tenemos que escuchar. O sea, la ciudadanía somos diversa, tenemos las rentas son muy diferentes, nuestras profesiones son muy diferentes. Entonces, para que esto funcione, nosotros tenemos que estar comprometidos. Y esa forma de estar comprometidos es que se nos escuche desde el principio, es desde abajo arriba, que se escuchen nuestras necesidades a nivel de barrio. Esto hay que empezarlo desde la escala pequeña. A nivel de barrio, vayamos subiendo con las necesidades de cada ciudad, sus necesidades geográficas, climáticas, tradicionales, su patrimonio, lo subamos a lo que es luego organizar los técnicos y lo que es el gobierno, la gobernanza de cada ciudad, organizar lo que de verdad necesita. En este sentido, yo creo que ya hay muchos ejemplos que se han tenido en cuenta esta forma de trabajar. Voy a pasar a unos de forma... Bueno, en este también quería decir, yo creo que ahora los técnicos, la posición de los arquitectos o ingenieros, tiene que ser un conectador, o sea, es una especie de facilitador de ese conocimiento que está en la ciudadanía, no conocimiento que está en la ciudadanía, sino necesidades de la ciudadanía, conectarlo con la técnica, conectarlo con la innovación y conectarlo con el mundo político y la planificación. Entonces, quiero recordar algunos de los primeros proyectos que se hicieron de participación urbana, como son los proyectos EcoCity, con Tübingen en Germany o el Trinitat Nova de Barcelona. Estos son ya de hace años, pero que fueron un auténtico llamada de atención a la forma de trabajar. En Tübingen, Germany, lo primero que se hizo fueron talleres participativos con el vecindario. Entonces, una idea que había de una remodelación de una zona cambió íntegramente por todo el input que estaba dando la ciudadanía. Y luego se ha creado un barrio en el que todo el mundo vive a gusto, en el que hay un compromiso brutal hacia él, que yo creo que es lo que más necesitamos ahora mismo a nivel país, ciudad y Europa, volver a tener el compromiso ciudadano. Y Trinitat Nova, por ejemplo, empezó con un planteamiento, fue en el año 2000, creo, una promoción inmobiliaria puramente mercantil que levantó en pie de guerra lo que fue el vecindario. Y gracias a esa forma de empezar a hablar, de empezar a pedir esas necesidades, volvió a cambiar y volvió a generar un barrio del que todo el mundo se sentía orgulloso. Hay ahora, y ahora para acabar, simplemente dos propuestas que estamos encontrando con nuevos... Se está complejizando también la forma de abordar estos problemas, ¿no? Entonces, por ejemplo, Climate Kick, que es una plataforma digamos, una comunidad de conocimiento, de tecnología, soportada por este europeo de tecnología, reúne a un montón de, digamos, todas profesiones, de ciudadanos, un montón de gente, y está sacando iniciativas muy interesantes a nivel global, a nivel sobre todo europeo. Ayer lanzó 1 millón de casas por año. Entonces, han buscado una plataforma que busca lo que es la economía de escala para aplicar a lo que es la regeneración urbana. Lo que dicen es que al ritmo que vamos ahora de un 1% de vivienda de regeneración de vivienda al año, no llegamos ni de broma al 2030, menos aún al 2050. Entonces, que para que eso ocurra y podamos tener una regeneración urbana digna de lo que nos merecemos todos, hay que empezar a acelerar. Entonces, han creado esta plataforma para buscar funding solutions, para buscar movimiento social, para empujar en todos los estamentos en esta dirección de aceleración. Y luego otro ejemplo muy interesante, Reinventing Cities, que lo ha puesto en marcha C40. Vuelvo a decir aquí, o sea, creo que las ciudades tienen ahora mismo, los países han ido perdiendo capacidad de política, capacidad de cambio, se han desdibujado en contornos más amplios, como puede ser la Unión Europea, y sin embargo las ciudades están cogiendo una potencia y una capacidad de cambio muchísimo más fuerte. Y eso para nosotros ciudadanos es una cosa muy importante a tener en cuenta. Reinventing Cities es una competición global gestionada por la asociación C40 de viviendas, que pone en marcha, pues son 19 ciudades con 39 zonas infrautilizadas, y lo que pide es que se unan en los equipos arquitectos, promotores, la inversión y luego todo tipo de ingenieros, pero por supuesto artistas, vecinos, asociaciones, para trabajar juntos en una idea, en un sitio y llevarla a cabo. Y llevarla a cabo teniendo ya desde el principio a los inversores de nuestra mano y poderla llevar a cabo peleándola y trabajándola con la ciudad, trabajándola con todos los actores. Y nosotros esta la conozco bien porque nosotros somos uno de los equipos que hemos pasado a la fase final y es un trabajo muy interesante de un equipo muy grande en el que nos encontramos, pues yo creo que representantes de todos los estamentos, o sea, del estamento político, de los técnicos, de la ciudad, de artistas, de asociaciones de biodiversidad, buscando soluciones que ayuden a reinventarnos las ciudades. Y con esto yo creo que es suficiente. Y bueno, muchas gracias por dejarme esta oportunidad.
Thank you very much, Bresso. That leads us really nicely into citizens' participation of this topic. I think Mercedes is slipping off because she said that she needs to leave us, unfortunately. But we still have time for questions. We're going to just go on for 5 or 10 minutes more. So please, if anyone has a question, please come up to the chair and you can take the microphone here. The same for the people that have just arrived. We're not bringing the microphone. You have to come here to the chair, please.
Well, I prefer to stand. My name is Bernd Törkl. I'm coming from Germany. I think I can underline all the statements and strategies, proposals, action plans whatsoever. Indeed, housing is the old new social question throughout Europe. And if we don't really try to solve the problem in the interest of our tenants, then we have an increasing cleavage of our societies. However, I can imagine that our voters are impatient. And they would like to know what is a concrete reaction here and now to solve the increasing prices of my contract. Imagine, I'm coming from Berlin, maybe I have work, but based on the minimum wage. And on the other hand, I am faced with an increasing price situation. And this is reality, not only in Berlin and elsewhere. What is a concrete answer from the socialist, from the social democratic point of view to help him and his family now? Last remark, at the end of 2017, within the European Union, we agreed on the European pillar on social rights. And one chapter is dealing with housing. So there is as well a concrete possibility, more in the way you mentioned, strategic plan. But now we have to try to work on an action plan to transfer this very interesting document into real life, into legislation at national level, at regional level.
Okay, thank you very much. Just present yourself, please, before you sit down.
Back the microphone.
Bueno, okay. If you'd like to, just before you take the floor, please just say who you are and...
Hello, I'm Dasha Shilovic. Thank you so much. It's such a complex topic that it's very difficult to pinpoint where to start. So I'm running the Central Eastern European Gender Network, but at the same time, I'm on the board of the European Partners for the Environment. That's why I'm intervening. Two issues, three. First, on the gender side, I mean, what we are discussing more and more is security, reinventing secure cities. And we're seeing violence erupting very much, and we're concerned also with the gender aspects of that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, one thing that hasn't been mentioned is the question of migrants. That's becoming a bottleneck for us, and a very heated issue, urgent issue, I think, which we have seen all over Europe. And the third thing is You have not mentioned Ambition 2030, and Frans Timmermans is very much on the topic. The European Partners for the Environment, which is a consortium of non-governmental organizations, is actually working on a comprehensive approach to the Ambition 2030, looking at it from the SDG perspective. So that much for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Because of time, we're going to bundle them all together. So I see this gentleman already sat on the chair. He's going to ask the floor. And then the other gentleman here, so that's 4 people. Then we're going to turn back to the panel afterwards. Please, señor. Sorry.
Muchas gracias por este encuentro, que yo creo que es interesante. A mí me parece que no existe un pacto europeo por la vivienda, y eso me parece que es un factor bastante importante, sobre todo porque Europa no tiene en cuenta a las personas. Europa lo que tiene en cuenta es el dinero, a través de la SICAP y a través de los fondos buitres, porque la legislación no solamente permite, sino que lo favorece. Esa ausencia de pacto de Estado en la vivienda europea yo creo que tiene consecuencias. La política, yo creo que en Europa no se practica una política con mayúsculas. Se practica una política en que hay que privatizar todo aquel bien que es rentable económicamente. En España se ha privatizado las empresas públicas que económicamente eran rentables. Se ha privatizado también el suelo. Ese es uno de los problemas que ahora mismo tienen los ayuntamientos. No hay suelo público. El poco suelo público, viviendas públicas, la señora Botella, gobernando en el Ayuntamiento de Madrid con el PP, las vendió a unos fondos buitre. Estas cosas yo creo que sí que son importantes, sobre todo además porque al no disponer de suelo público no puedes facilitar el acceso a las viviendas, y además porque tampoco se favorece el cooperativismo, que yo creo que es muy importante. La vivienda es algo transversal y es algo horizontal, y yo creo que ese concepto no se tiene en cuenta. Me alegro mucho por Viena, sobre todo porque, lo digo por Micaela, sobre todo porque lo que tienen en cuenta es el beneficio social y no el beneficio económico, que es lo que yo creo que prevalece en los demás sitios. Claro, hay también otra cuestión. La vivienda no deja de ser una estrategia maravillosa para el capitalismo, porque todos nuestros recursos se tienen que dedicar a la vivienda. Nos esclavizan endeudándonos de por vida y para también las generaciones siguientes. Y bueno, yo quería decirle a Adrián que uno es político en lo profesional y en lo personal. Eso es evidente. Otra cosa distinta es que esa política sea pensando en el beneficio público o en el beneficio privado. Y yo creo que hay que apostar por eso, por las consecuencias que tiene. Pero en resumidas cuentas yo creo que esto es porque no hay una política educativa con mayúscula, un pacto de Estado en el que las personas estuviéramos siendo responsables y siendo partícipes y actuando todos al mismo tiempo. Gracias.
Bien, mi nombre es Manuel Honrubia, soy de aquí de Madrid, aunque vivo en Alcorcón, pero nacido en Andalucía. Me da la impresión de que estamos queriendo curar la herida con tiritas. Y me refiero porque si miramos el mapa de España, tenemos un triángulo industrial, Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao. Y sin embargo, el resto de España se está despoblando. ¿Por qué concentramos la industria en estos centros como Madrid, que nada más intentar entrar desde los pueblos de al lado vemos ese gorro de polución? ¿Por qué no distribuimos la industria en redes? ¿Por qué no está terminado ya el corredor del Mediterráneo? Que eso haría que muchas personas no tuviesen que emigrar, con lo cual el precio de la vivienda no sería tan caro, como lo es. Porque durante mucho tiempo estuvimos diciendo que España estaba muy atrasada porque teníamos los Pirineos. Eso nos impedía una red comercial. Bueno, pues este mismo problema lo tiene Andalucía con el resto de España. Por Despeñaperros solo pasa una vía. Si baja un tren de mercancías, no puede subir uno de pasajeros. ¿Cómo se puede desarrollar Andalucía con una vía solo? Yo soy de la parte de Jaén y allí solo tenemos el monocultivo del olivo.
We need to continue with the time, but thank you very much for participating, for your contribution. So we're just going to give the floor now. There's lots of questions. Firstly, give the floor to Adrian, and then to the others, and also please round up what you're going to say, but please just try to keep it as brief as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Indeed, unfortunately, I have to rush away. I have a meeting at the ministry in about half an hour's time. I have found it very interesting to participate, and I've listened carefully. I was impressed by the fact that you appreciate the complexity of the issues that we're dealing with. And complexity should not dissuade us from taking action. Complexity is something that has to be spoken through, has to be understood. You have to take all the points of view into account. And I liked what our German colleague said, that housing is the old social policy of the future, because it is indeed going to be, it's an absolutely central part of successful societies. I also wanted to say that the Climate Kick project that you spoke about with the 1 million homes, unfortunately, 1 million homes, they want to have 100 cities, each doing one project of 10,000 homes. That's the plan. Unfortunately, there are 215 million homes in Europe, and their time frame is 5 years. At that rate, we won't address all the housing and homes problems till 2200, which is far too far away. So there's a more radical approach needed. And I don't know what that approach is, but I do know that we're willing to work with you and everybody to find the right solutions to move forward. And those national renovation strategies have got to be reflected at regional and city level, or they will fail as well. So this multi-level governance has got to be worked out too. And with that, I'm going to excuse myself and rush away.
Thank you, Adrian. Michaela. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Adrian was telling that we should be radical, so I'm trying my best now. If we are here in the progressive family, I will just say 3 things. First, if we talk about the housing crisis, we should change our mindset. It will never be the public alone to cope with all the problems. We have to force the private sector to contribute. And we have to force it by regulation, by protection mechanisms in the system, and also by forcing them to pay the bloody taxes. And this is something where we need the money in our cities to provide for the affordable housing for all our citizens who live in our cities, because this is where they have their life. So this is one. And when we're talking about money, I can only remind you that 100 years ago, socialists in Austria, in Vienna, introduced a special tax for housing. And it was literally taking from the rich and giving to the poor, but not directly. But of course, they built houses and a whole urban infrastructure with it. Today, we're a little bit in the same situation where we have big companies not contributing to the infrastructure we as cities and countries also have provided. They use this to make profits, they use it to create value, but in the end they don't contribute accordingly. So I really think that we will need the financial transaction tax also for our city governments and our city budgets. Really stay on that. And the last, because gender was mentioned, If we talk about housing affordability, dear comrades, and I see a lot of my PES women friends and sisters here, if we talk about affordability, we can never do that without having a gender dimension on that. We are a few days away from equal pay day. But we are a few months away from equal pension day. And this is unacceptable. If we talk about affordable housing, we also have to add a gender dimension on that. Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, apparently we don't have any more time at all. I'm really sorry about this, but the coffee's here. So I'm really sorry, but there is more time to discuss with one another. Thank you very much for all the speakers. Thank you to the participants. There's going to be a short 5-minute break. There's coffee over there. Toilets are in that door there. Thank you once again, and come back in 5 minutes. Y los ponentes si pueden ir a la esquina to get your microphones. ¿Está? Okay. You have this microphone. So, ¿dónde está Laura? Laura is moderating this panel. So we need to be very quick for your meeting to start.
No, but 30 seconds. But I can't hold the microphone because I have a speech.
If you have a Madonna, you have to go there, but it's a bit late.
What?
They have a Madonna microphone.
Yes, I need, yeah.
Well, you need to go quickly then. No, there's no. So we need
but
to
then
start.
you hold the mic. But then I don't use the
I'll
microphone.
hold. You want me to hold the microphone?
That's fine. I'm super.
Do you want me to hold the microphone?
Are you ready? Are you ready? I don't hear you. Are you ready? It's still not enough. If we want to change Europe, we need more to say, are you ready? It's almost good. Are you ready? Now it's going to be better and better. I kindly ask all to finish socializing and to listen to this amazing panel that I am going to participate. And first of all, let's have a huge clap hands for FEP's team to organize this amazing Call to Europe event. So it looks that almost everybody is ready, and my sister from Spain as well, encantada. He's my brother. When I was in trouble, my Hungarian former party leader, he was giving me a helping hand. Anyway, so shall we start? I'm not going to make 5 minutes. Yeah, sure. Okay, so dear friends, I thought the campaign will officially start after the Congress, but I'm already running from one place to another to spread the word on feminism. That is why I'm running late, but actually I came and I could catch a little from the last panel. What do you think feminism mean to me? I would say feminism is a driving force for change. Do you think it is all right? Do you think it is all right when we are in Pedro's land, who is a great feminist prime minister? Cool. But not only for me, but also for our political family. This is why today in this panel we don't question it, but we affirm it. And of course, being here in Spain, España es en mi corazón, allows me to take a fresh breath of air, not only because of the nice weather, but especially due to the cultural and political climate. We see here a true feminist government, a government that not only gives space and power to women, but that is also delivering on gender equality through effective policies. This needs to continue so that gender-responsive content, equal participation and representation of women and men in political life become the norm and not the exception. Yes, we can do that. Let's have a huge clap hands for Pedro Sánchez, because he's the only prime minister having 11 women out of 17 in Spain. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Unfortunately, as you all know, I am coming from Orbanistan, coming from Hungary. And of course, unfortunately, my country is the exception. To improve the low birth rates of children in Hungary, Viktor Orban recently published his action plan to secure the family. We go back to the 19th century. This program will provide a loan for families with at least 2 children to help them buy homes, subsidies for cars, and tax advantages for women raising at least 4 children. Women are like machines. Can you imagine? We have to say no. We have to stop Orban all around Europe. Hey, Esther. Oh, Esther Nubi. Wow, my sister is here from Catalonia. Women below 40 who marry for the first time will be eligible for a subsidized loan of almost 32,000 euro. The more children you have, the less you need to pay back. Can you imagine? That's not business as usual. Of course, this deal only concerns traditional family compositions. I sadly conclude, Hungarian women are trapped in a Handmaid's Tale episode directed by Orbán. The Prime Minister and his party, backed by the EPP, is still continuing their hard line of anti-immigration and discriminatory policies with broadcasting traditional family values. What he may not realize is the fact that more and more young women and men are fleeing Hungary to find a better place to live where their rights, freedom, and democracy are respected. We have to fight for freedom, democracy, and gender equality for the next European election. Are you ready? Good, we are better and better. While this right-wing rhetoric and mainstream sexism in my country prevails, there are more and more fragmented forces out there who are pushing an anti-feminist and anti-democratic agenda. And I'm sure that Neil Data can tell you much more about this during the panel. But also here in Spain, again, this macho attitude finds followers. Last week, the ultra-right party Vox held its congress in Pamplona, stating their position on gender equality, including calling feminists feminazis and claiming that men are being undermined by gender equality and women's rights. They even want to abolish laws on combating violence against women in order to re-establish the imbalance and injustice that, in their opinion, is happening to men. It's a shame on them. It's a shame. We have to stop them. And of course, extremist conservative movements have turned the argument around victimizing the man. That is why the progressive and feminist movement have to be the answer and unpick arguments. We need strong civil society and women's movement, and we must look for opportunities of solidarity to support one another and to work together. The dialogue with people is absolutely necessary, and it is absolutely urgent. We need to fight back the right-wing populist movement and to show the limits, the emptiness, and restrictiveness of their policies. We offer workable alternatives, and FEPS is crucial for doing alternatives. And I'm super happy to get so many amazing brains who worked for FEPS for the last long years to show it's not impossible. When you have the best on the board, then you have the best policy in Europe as well. And of course, as socialists and social democrats, we have to recall that democracy based on rule of law and is the only way to ensure diversity and equality. We have the progressive answers and role models. And our politicians and political parties are these examples. We have a strong progressive agenda to advance gender equality across all fields and sectors. We are thus calling for a binding EU gender equality strategy, because we want women to have equal career opportunities, equal pay. By the way, Franz Timmermans announced in Hungary that he is going to close the gender pay gap within 5 years, which is very, very ambitious, but let's make it happen. And I'm super happy to have a feminist Franz on the board, so let's make sure that we can make it. And of course, besides equal pay, we do not risk poverty is an old age for women. We want women not to fear and experience any violence, whether online, in the street, in their workplace, on their homes. We want women to have the right to make a choice about their health, body, and sexual life without fear, violence, or discrimination. Everyone can be part of this, supporting our campaign and women in politics. So speak out, vote and promote, and vote for Women for the Socialist Family to show that parity is a must. Thank you very much.
The microphones working? Working? Yes? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here today in Madrid. And I'm very happy to see so many people in front of us. My name is Laetitia Thyssen. I work as FEPS as a policy advisor on gender equality and women's rights. But I'm here today also as a young woman who wonders why this is still possible nowadays. So I'm going to ask you a very straightforward question. Who is a feminist here? Raise your hand. So there seems to be little doubt about this question. However, and quite unfortunately, it does not seem to be the case of everybody. Some people think gender equality is already achieved. After all, it has been in the EU treaties since 1957. So why should we even bother? Others think feminism is actually going too far. Zita, before she mentioned the feminazis. So are we actually going too far when it comes to gender equality? It's true. In the past, women, or young girls, they were not even entitled to go to school. Now, it seems that we are even scoring better than boys. But unfortunately, that is where the success story is ending. Although we are scoring better at university level, we are less women in top positions. If you look at the statistics, women are still at disadvantage. Two out of three top positions in the EU are occupied by men, and a woman will always earn, on average, earn three-quarters of what her man counterpart is earning. So, in that sense, I would certainly not tend to think that feminism has gone too far. Authoritarian nationalism across the world and across Europe is on the rise. Some of the countries are in recessions. Some of them are actually booming. Others are fearing the consequences of migrations, others aren't. But what they all have in common is not only the fact that they are very hostile to liberal democracy, but is also the fact that they want to subordinate women. In order to understand this global Trumpism, we need to look at history, because historically speaking, men have had a contract between themselves, a social contract that says that some men can rule over others in exchange of all the other men ruling over women. And this hierarchy has often been seen as something completely natural as parents ruling over children, because this is the model that we see at home. So women empowerment is actually completely disrupting this model. Now take an example. In the French Revolution, yes, I'm taking you very far away, but the gender backlash is nothing new at all. In the French Revolution, Marie Antoinette has been portrayed as the illustration of the immorality of the past regime. So basically, she was to blame for the monarchy. And as soon as the monarchy has been thrown down, what did they do? Well, they started preventing women from senior teaching positions. They started preventing them from inheritance rights, etc., etc. And we see similar patterns in other parts of history. Coming back to today, coincidence? We are seeing very similar trends. Not only in Eastern Europe, but also in the rest. Look at Poland. Poland has been preventing direct selling of the day after pill. They have also been raiding the offices of women's rights organizations following the Black protest. Do I need to cite Hungary, who banned the gender studies faculty? But you have also Romania. There has been the recent referendum on same-sex marriage. But we cannot generalize. Look at Germany. In Germany, gynecologists are being convicted or are being blamed because they are informing people about abortion. Look at Italy. Salvini has been accusing the president of the parliament and calling her or comparing her to a sex doll. And so on and so on. So I'm going to stop here, but we all know the examples. Of course, the social media, and particularly the Me Too, has provided a really important push in order to show that women actually, they want more than this. Women cannot let this happen. But if we want in the long term to defeat authoritarianism, what we actually also need is to normalize women's empowerment. And to do this, we need to address the problems at its root cause, and to show that we do not accept the fact that women are being subordinated. Look, for instance, at the northern countries. In the Nordic countries, it is very normal. Gender equality, it's just there. They think it's normal. If you look at the figures in parliament, 48% of members in Iceland are actually women. Look at Sweden, they are 44%. Look at Finland, they are 42%. Is that a coincidence? Now, you go to Italy, the figures go down to 31%. We go to Hungary, Zita, 10% women in parliaments. So where lies the problem? What do the progressives need to do? They need to own the F word. And by this, I actually mean feminism. And this definition is actually a very powerful one. It says that it is the radical notion that women are people. And this one is very useful in actually associating women with humans. And this is what autocrats are often doing by submitting women and by adopting their authoritative behavior. They take away their humanity. Of course, there are as many definitions as days in the year, but what you need to remember is that feminism is a lens to see the world. It pushes us to ask, but why are women paid less than men? Why do they have to accept that they cannot decide over their own body, and so on and so forth? Of course, it goes without saying that without feminism, there is no democracy. We need feminism to achieve a proper democracy. Now, progressive forces and actors need to have a proper reflection on what they believe should be the right thing to do. They need to act in solidarity together with politics, with science, with civil society, and they need to take example. They need to realize that diversity is actually an extreme added value to society. And if you look, for instance, at what the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, has been saying, she said in Davos, we need to address the societal well-being of our nation, the societal well-being of our nation, and not just the economic one. So practically speaking, she wants every policy to take into account the well-being of the population. Every budget needs to be measured according to child poverty figures, according to people's happiness and well-being. So it actually demonstrates that women might actually have a different way of making politics. And so my conclusion would be, I just hope that in the future, and especially now with the coming of the next elections, that the progressive forces are going to be this change, and that there is going to be this change of political culture. Thank you very much.
No, it doesn't work. ¿Sí? Vale, perdón. Buenos días, muchas gracias. Vamos con un poquito de retraso, así que intentaré ser rápida. Tenemos 45 minutos para esta mesa. Muchísimas gracias a la organización de este seminario, a las 4 fundaciones que lo organizan. Y este es un panel, como veréis en el título, que quiere hablar de feminismo como dique contra el autoritarismo. Esther y Beatriz, las directoras de la Fundación Campalans y Pablo Iglesias, creyeron oportuno hablar de este tema porque, como sabéis, hay un auge de la extrema derecha que recorre toda Europa y las mujeres, se ha comprobado en elecciones tras elecciones, que votaban menos por estas fuerzas extremistas, ¿no? Queríamos ver desde estas fundaciones por qué pasa eso, por qué las mujeres votan menos a las opciones de extrema derecha y cómo podemos, como partidos socialdemócratas, como fundaciones socialistas, entender mejor las causas y poder frenar estas fuerzas que amenazan directamente los derechos de la mitad de la población mundial. Una extrema derecha, como ha comentado Leticia, que en Hungría y Polonia ha pasado leyes para dar incentivos económicos a las mujeres para que se queden en casa y puedan tener hijos y así apartarlas del mercado laboral. Una extrema derecha que en España, encarnada no solo en Vox, sino también en Pablo Casado, dijo hace poco que las mujeres, que quería derogar la ley del aborto porque así se pagarían mejor las pensiones. Ni un paso atrás. Este es el lema de este seminario y por eso queríamos invitaros hoy aquí. Las mujeres, se ha demostrado en todo el mundo, hay una cuarta ola de feminismo que recorre el mundo que ha demostrado que no nos vamos a quedar quietas, que vamos a movilizarnos. La palabra que incorporó la RAE el año pasado, el 2017, fue sororidad. Creo que es uno de los ejemplos en los que se muestra más claramente esta fuerza de las mujeres, pero no solo podemos ser nosotras. Necesitamos a hombres feministas. Aquí tenemos a Juan, el director del centro EMMA, que visitamos hace poco con Irache y con Franz Timmermans, un centro integral de atención a las mujeres en Vallecas, con lo cual veo muchos hombres en la sala y me alegra. Así que nada, ya yo voy a dar la palabra a los 4 ponentes que tenemos aquí. Sabéis el formato fishbowl, que quiere decir que en cualquier momento el público puede subir a uno de estos taburetes y hacer algún tipo de pregunta o intervención. No vamos a esperar hasta el final. Así que vamos a ello. En primer lugar tenemos a Jorge Galindo. Muchísimas gracias, Jorge, por estar aquí. Jorge es sociólogo y está acabando ya su doctorado. De hecho, está camino, él vive en Colombia y está camino de Ginebra, donde va a presentar su tesis doctoral especializada en comportamiento electoral de votos a la extrema derecha. Con lo cual, agradecemos muchísimo que esté hoy aquí, que ha sido una gran casualidad. Y nada, te damos 5 minutillos y luego seguiremos con el resto de ponentes. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, gracias a vosotros, porque la verdad me siento honrado de estar aquí, no solo como persona, digamos, en principio externa al partido, sino también como hombre. O sea, la verdad es que me parece muy guay, me siento privilegiado pudiendo hablar de estas cosas. Yo voy a tener un tono un poco más académico para ver si podemos precisamente responder a lo que decías, a las causas y demás. Porque efectivamente, tradicionalmente, en Europa se ha hablado de un gender gap en el voto a extrema derecha. Lo que hemos pensado siempre es que las mujeres votan menos que los hombres a la extrema derecha. Y teníamos, digamos, en la imagen precrisis, en la imagen pre-2008, sobre todo 5 factores en los cuales se apoyaban los análisis politológicos para justificar esto. Uno, y el más obvio, es pues, el rechazo de las mujeres hacia un discurso obviamente machista y tradicionalista. Esto es como el punto número 1. El otro es, otros 2 puntos son que, al menos hasta recientemente, las mujeres en Europa mostraban menores niveles de preferencias anti-inmigración y euroescépticas. Aquí tenemos 2 más. Y por tanto, que estos que son las grandes banderas de la extrema derecha, las mujeres en principio sentían más rechazo hacia esto. Después de esto, miro el móvil no porque esté mirando WhatsApp, sino porque tengo las notas aquí. Después de esto también teníamos un, digamos, cuarto factor más estructural, que es las mujeres, por regla general, pertenecen más al tercer sector, al sector terciario de la economía, menos al sector industrial, y por tanto, históricamente estaban menos amenazadas por los riesgos de la deindustrialización y demás, que son los que contemplábamos en la primera ola de la extrema derecha, años 90 y principios de los 2000. Y por último, y esto es más reciente, también sabemos que, por regla general, las mujeres son más conservadoras en el voto, pero conservadoras con respecto a pro statu quo y anti-inventos, digamos, que puedan sonar más fringe o más extremos. Entonces, hay un sesgo antipopulista en el voto de las mujeres en general. Estos son los 5 factores que teníamos hasta ahora como para explicar este gender gap. ¿Qué pasa? Que el gender gap se está cerrando. Se cerró en Italia, se cerró en Francia, en Andalucía, por ejemplo, en las elecciones autonómicas, con Vox como primer partido de extrema derecha entrando en un parlamento en muchos años en España, no en la historia de la democracia, porque ya tuvimos algunos en la transición, el gap, la proporción fue 60-40, es decir, ya no había un gran gap, 60 hombres, 40 mujeres, ya eso se está cerrando poco a poco. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué está pasando esto? ¿Por qué las mujeres ahora votan más a la extrema derecha de lo que lo hacían antes? Retomo los factores anteriores porque hay que reconsiderarlos. Y hay que reconsiderarlos también desde un punto de vista de oferta. Algo estará haciendo la extrema derecha para apelar a cierto voto de las mujeres. Primero, la extrema derecha post-crisis es una extrema derecha que se ha movido hacia un discurso mucho más de welfare chauvinism, de proteccionismo digamos, de bienestar proteccionista solo para los de casa, eso sí, nunca para los de fuera, pero que apela a unas mujeres que al final han formado parte de la parte más expuesta a las causas negativas de la crisis económica. La crisis es un golpe para las familias en Europa, un golpe muy fuerte. La primera línea de ese golpe lo reciben las mujeres, en muchos casos, y por tanto, en muchos lugares, sobre todo en Francia, por ejemplo, la extrema derecha pasa a tener un discurso que resulta más proteccionista y más interesante para cierto perfil de mujer. De esto hay estudios muy interesantes. Cualquier persona que quiera ver los papers luego me viene y me pregunta y yo se los paso. Además, el discurso anti-inmigración de la extrema derecha en Europa se ha vuelto cada vez más refinado y más concreto y le ha buscado la vuelta a las cosas, por ejemplo, para, digamos, poner el marco sobre la inmigración de esto es una amenaza para las mujeres. El mundo musulmán es una amenaza para las mujeres. Este es el discurso de la extrema derecha y es el discurso que algunas mujeres han empezado a comprar como algo interesante para ellas, que parece que está funcionando. Además, como la extrema derecha se ha movido después de Brexit, se ha alejado del discurso euroescéptico duro, porque pues, Brexit ha sido una llamada de atención para toda la extrema derecha en Europa y ha pasado a un segundo plano esto, digamos que esto ya no es tanto un impedimento. Y por último, en tanto que la extrema derecha va ganando votos y va ganando presencia, a muchas mujeres que tienen este sesgo anti-statu quo, o sea, pro-statu quo, perdón, ya le parece que la extrema derecha forma parte de lo que está dentro de... Estamos habituadas a ello y, por tanto, les resulta interesante. Sobre todo esto, además, la extrema derecha ha montado un discurso, para mí, bastante interesante desde un punto de vista de marco mental, porque les está funcionando. Y esto es copiado, sobre todo, del tradicionalismo reaccionario de Estados Unidos. Ponen a mujeres de extrema derecha en el primer plano, con lo cual también dan no solo representación sustantiva de temas, sino representación descriptiva. Marine Le Pen es, por supuesto, el ejemplo más claro en Europa. Y las ponen a desarrollar un discurso reaccionario que parece y que tiene la apariencia de libertario, aunque realmente no lo es. Porque lo que están diciendo es, queremos el derecho a escoger a ser como nosotras queremos ser, tradicionales y demás. Claro, es una trampa argumental porque ese derecho siempre lo han tenido, o sea, nadie les está obligando a ser como de una manera distinta, pero es el discurso que están desarrollando. Y además, esto lo amplían con una posición paternalista y reaccionaria de protección del cuerpo de las mujeres. Esto hay dos autoras que son Cynthia Miller-Idris y Hilary Pinkington, que acaban de sacar un libro sobre este tema, sobre por qué las mujeres se están acercando a la extrema derecha en Europa, que dicen justo esto. Con este discurso anti-inmigrante, xenófobo, que relaciona la cultura musulmana con la cultura de la violación y demás, están apelando a estas mujeres que se sienten, o que les hacen sentir, de hecho, con este discurso que viene desde arriba, inseguras. Esto es un poco el marco en el que estamos. Y ahora me salgo un poco de la parte académica, que es donde estaba hasta ahora, analizando y vamos al qué hacer. Yo no tengo la respuesta esta es, por supuesto, de la gente que trabajáis en política, trabajáis en el activismo y lo hacéis fantásticamente. Yo, desde un punto de vista analítico, solo puedo decir dos pequeñas ideas que tengo. Una, por supuesto, una ampliación del estado de bienestar, que reconsidere las nuevas demandas, los nuevos riesgos a nivel europeo y que incluya esas demandas que son reales de las mujeres que se han sentido completamente desprotegidas, primera línea del golpe después de la crisis, para desactivar esa parte del discurso de la extrema derecha. Y la otra parte para desactivar discurso de extrema derecha, y esto casi lo digo más como hombre, es mostrar las ventajas del feminismo que existen para nosotros, para los hombres, que a veces no son tan evidentes, que es, por supuesto, un segundo orden del feminismo. Lo principal del feminismo siempre es una redistribución del poder, pero bueno, en esa redistribución hay ventajas. Reconsideramos nuestros roles masculinos, nos sentimos más libres, escogiendo roles más tranquilos en muchos sentidos, y además podemos ganar tiempo con la familia, podemos participar mucho más libremente sin la presión social de otros hombres en el trabajo reproductivo y demás. Estas son dos ideas que yo creo que pueden funcionar y podemos considerar como mecanismos para desactivar este crecimiento del discurso de la extrema derecha entre ciertos segmentos de las mujeres en Europa. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Jorge. Muy interesante esta, digamos, exposición de las causas y también las dos ideas que apuntas. Seguimos con Mía. Mía viene de Eslovenia y es la vicepresidenta del PES, con lo cual le voy a hacer una pregunta para que nos pueda indicar un poquito las ideas que nos quería contar. How can we understand the new forms of patriarchal and oligarchic power present in Europe and Western societies?
So thank you very much. Hello, everyone. First of all, let us look around this room, please, everyone. Well, you haven't turned your heads, but I'm seeing something very interesting. We are discussing the topic of feminism, and it's absolutely almost half men and women in the room, huh? Can we give a big round of applause because we are progressives? You know, a good sister from PES Women, Elke, sitting right there, told me yesterday a very good quote. It's hard to achieve equality. For the privileged, an equality is disadvantage. So on this note, we were laughing, right? But I think I have to become a little serious here because the elections that are coming up will be a bumpy one. And I think that I will start by saying that measuring the democracy and well-being should be in any society how it treats its women and girls. And actually the topics we are addressing today are shaking me to my core I couldn't have predicted. I would love nothing more but to have a normal speech today and pretend that there's nothing happening and we can put the things under the rug, huh? But at the same time, what are we, the progressives, doing when the far right and the right is rising around Europe? I think this is not something that we can ignore. It is also not something that can be answered only with academics. I think it needs a broader action of all of us, the so-called progressives. And I'm also very sad because I was raised by women who have experienced and shaped our societies with the rights that our generation didn't have to fight for. Huh? And we all thought that this traditional misogyny has been an ancient history, didn't we? And now, in every corner of Europe, we can see the politics of fear, we can see the politics of abuse, of exploitation, of discrimination, sexism, racism, fascism, and so on. So, to answer your question, because I know I have a limited time, I would say that progressive majorities are never given. They have to be constantly created around a social action for social change. But when this action or vision gets blurred, when this is the time when I would use my term saying the regressive majority takes the political stage. And I would also talk about the fragmentation, because the fragmentation shows us the loss of progressive majority. But what does it mean when we lose the progressive majorities, if we did lose them? It means it is a sign of a shift of balance of power between the labor and the capital in favor of the capital. And I would also talk about the polarization, and I would claim that the only true polarization is the polarization I just mentioned. Polarization between the labor and the capital. And all other polarizations that the right-wingers are putting on the stage are smoke curtains. Why? To make our fight for the working class invisible, inevitable, non-important. And I would also claim that the capitalist system that we are living in today is in crisis, not only because it's not addressing the vital challenges of the humankind. I would add that our parliamentary democracy is in crisis. And I would also dare to say that social democracy and our parties are included. We are in crisis because a lot of people don't feel that we are working for the working class, but not the working class that has been described years ago. Because we know the definition for the working class changed drastically. But do we have the answers for this new working class? So I don't know if I know how to answer your question, and I am not sure that this crisis will end the capitalist system we are living in. But I am convinced that the progressive majorities, when they will form, the new ones, or perhaps they have been formed already, they have to be shaped around concrete questions resolving exactly these challenges. We have excellent papers. We are preparing Agenda 2030. We have this perspective for social Europe. But do we have the majority of the people who will fight for these papers to be put in practice? Do we? Let's look at Poland, for instance. Europe, black protest in Poland. I would turn this question around and say, how was it possible that millions, thousands of women came to the streets? Because so many political forces, so many political parties joined the civil society movements, not only joined and supported them. We gave them focus, we gave them effectiveness together with them. We shaped the movement. It's not only Poland. Look at Slovenia, for instance, the small country I'm coming from. 1991 or 1976, constitutional right to safe, free, and legal abortion. And again, we are showing that we are capable, I'm saying social democratic parties, together with progressive majorities, to fight for the rights that have been fought for. Because in the 90s, did we forget that our political family dominated political stage? Did we forget that we were the ones who were building social Europe? Did we forget that we were the ones who were building welfare systems? So what happened? We were the ones, not the right-wingers. And what is going on, in my modest opinion, that the right-wingers are stealing our ideas, framing our ideas into concrete actions, but not by building systems, but by creating charities. And I do agree with the first speakers. They are creating the consequences for the elite. So they are creating and shaping societies in which the majority of the people cannot live. They are creating dependencies. But it is us. It is your generation, not my generation. I didn't go to the street and fight for my rights. And a lot of my generation think that this is something that is given. It's not given. It has to be fought for. Now more than ever. Together with you, with the generation that shaped Europe. It is you who build Europe. It is you who build social systems. So the question I'm asking, what happened? Yesterday, Ernst had a very reasonable answer, I might say. In 2007, when the financial crisis occurred, how did we respond? I guess we responded with a little bit repairing and smoothing the capitalist system, but did we provide an alternative? Did we say, this system doesn't work anymore and we are the ones who are having the answers? Or did we just try to shape a little bit and smooth a little bit, and then we waited for the right-wingers to take our ideas, to take our knowledge, to take your experiences, and provide the answers that are our answers? I think I didn't really answer your question. But this is not politics as usual, so I think it's not only about answering, it's about discussing as well.
Of course.
And just one more sentence to finish. You know, we always say, or women say, or the feminist movement say, we want half of the cake. It's not true. We want half of the bakery. If not half of the bakery, we will take the whole bakery.
Thank you, Mia, for these inspiring statements. And now I will introduce Neil Datta. Neil Datta is the Secretary General of the European Parliamentary Forum on Population and Development. This is a network of all across Europe of group of parliamentarians committed to championing women's sexual and reproductive health and rights. So we have another feminist man in the room, and what is most impressive is that he holds 5 nationalities. That's really impressive. So yesterday you were telling me about your focus, your research on, and I will ask this, no? Which are the similarities and differences between the attacks of the extreme right towards the sexual and reproductive rights, and which is the answer, the similarities, also differences, of the feminist movements?
Thank you very much, Laura. In terms of the far right, with me, I don't take a look at all of the far right. I take a look at specifically those groups which seek to undermine women's rights, and specifically women's rights in abortion, contraception, etc. I didn't set out to look at these groups, unlike our PhD friend here. With me, it was more of an accident. As Laura said, we work to advance women's rights, but increasingly from our members at national level, people would contact me and say, Neil, there's this thing against abortion in my country. This is new. It's never been an issue before. We don't understand what this is, where does it come from, and over the past 10 years, this increased in frequency so that we started seeing certain parallels, some of the same names of organizations and individuals, so we developed a certain type of expertise in this. So first thing, in terms of understanding the movement against women's rights and the far right, is that over the past 10 years in Europe, what has happened is the emergence of a new social movement. We weren't aware of it up until relatively recently, but it's been building up so that now it exists. It's important to point out this is new. In the United States, for 30, 40 years, there has been what's known as the Christian right. Myself, one of the nationalities I hold is not just French, but also American. And the French part of me was very smug, thinking, these stupid Americans, they have all these problems with abortion. We're much wiser in Europe. Well, now things are different, okay? So it's a new social movement in Europe. This new movement is not like the old anti-abortion movement that we knew in the 90s and 80s, which protested outside clinics and which they said we're against abortion, etc. It's a new movement which has a positive articulation. This positive articulation is one based around human dignity with 3 components. These 3 components are life, protection of life from the moment of conception until natural death. Secondly, the protection of marriage, traditional, patriarchal, heterosexual marriage, father, mother, 2 kids, and maybe a dog. No other formula is good. And then finally, religious freedom. Religious freedom meaning my right as a Christian or person of faith to derogate from legislation on discrimination, hate speech, equality, etc. So we have this new movement here. Some characteristics of this movement, and to compare with the feminist or progressive movement, which was essentially a movement that was born in the 1990s as in the post-Cold War era, which brought about this huge, this very important period of time of expanding human rights and liberal democracy. Some characteristics of this anti-women's rights movement are, they share certain characteristics. One of them is a proximity to the far right, the movements that our first speaker just described. So that very often, these new far right parties that you see, Vox, Alternative für Deutschland, similar groups in other countries, you take a look at some of the leadership and you find the same individuals who are in the anti-abortion, anti-gender movements in different countries. So there's a crossover of leadership between the NGO, the ultra-conservative civil society, and the far-right political parties. Another characteristic has been one of drastic professionalization. And this is really key to understand. They are able to, they understand how the institutions, EU, Council of Europe, etc., UN, they understand how these work as well as the brightest INA or College of Europe graduate. And they're able to work the system in the way that previously was the preserve of human rights organizations. And a third characteristic is their transnational organization. We tended to think that the anti-abortion movement in my country, in Spain or France or whatever, it's a small local thing. It's always been there and it's not important. We know how to deal with it. Please abandon that idea. They are as connected as any one of us. They are able to organize themselves via social media. They can buy affordable flights and they hold congresses and meetings. Some of these meetings, we know about them. One of them took place in the European Parliament in 2016, called the Political Network of Values. And it took some effort to ensure that the president of the parliament, Tajani, would not speak at that meeting. That meeting gathers together socially conservatives, people and actors and politicians from Latin America, the United States, and Europe. Another such meeting will be next month in Verona, the World Congress of Families, where Minister Salvini is expected to come speak. Also, President of the European Parliament, Tajani, was listed as a speaker until some MEPs got upset about this. Now he's gone. So they coordinate. It's a very active social movement. We've counted at least 18 different initiatives that they have launched at national and at European level, so that the homophobic, anti-equal marriage initiatives of Croatia, Slovenia, Slovakia, and Romania all come from there. The attempts to ban abortion or restrict abortion in Poland and in Spain come from organizations which organize around this network. So what we need to do also is realize that what had previously been segmented issues, abortion, women's rights, contraception, and then separately there's LGBT and other issues, it's all part of the same thing. Just go back to their own mindset. Why is it the same thing? For them, sex is only for the purpose of procreation. Any other type of human sexuality is bad and wrong. Whether it's with contraception, it ends in an abortion, or non-procreative same-sex. So it's all equally bad. Who are these movements? Who are they? On the one hand, there's the old abortion infrastructure, but now there's a new layer of organizations that have come to take over this, which have the much broader mandate of human dignity, life, marriage, and religious freedom. But there are certain subcomponents within that that are interesting. One is the arrival of the US Christian right. So we see US Christian right organizations since 2014 set up offices in Brussels, Strasbourg, Geneva. Why are they there? It's not because they're beautiful cities, but because they're the centers of European decision-making. The US Christian right is important also to keep in mind because in the United States, social progress has been the result of Supreme Court decisions, going back to contraception, Roe v. Wade on abortion, and also equal marriage. It was never the result of legislation, whereas in Europe, it has always been the result of legislation. What this means is that American litigation capacity, 40, 50 years worth of experience, is now coming to Europe, and we have very little of that experience in terms of proper court litigation. Another component here is the convergence of religious actors around the same point of view. The original thinking around human dignity, life, marriage, and freedom was articulated by Catholic thinkers. Over the past 10 years, we see Protestant churches, Protestant leadership, and most recently, the Orthodox leadership align themselves on the same position. So that there was a meeting of Pope Francis with Patriarch Kirill in La Habana maybe 2 years ago. They hadn't met in 1,000 years since the schism. What do they agree on? They agree on that gender ideology is the main threat to Christian civilization. Another point, geopolitics. Our issues of women's rights and gender have now become a main geopolitical issue, which serves as a main point of cleavage for different visions of Europe. A degenerate, liberal, progressive Europe, or an authentic Christian, traditional Europe as promoted by Moscow and some other leaders and capitals. And then I'll end here. This movement has women's rights and women's place in society overall as a target. But it's also part of a wider agenda. And we can see, but this wider agenda is contested. There's at least 2 different schools of thought there. One of them is a school of thought which we see on the continent, in Hungary and Poland, which is that of a strong state using social measures in order to create a clientelist dependency among a certain type of the population, and this is legitimized by religious actors and thinking. But there's another set of actors also. We see this more in the Anglo-American and Latin American world, which is that of a hyper-capitalist model, which sees a small state, deregulation, and society simply organized by religious values. We see this less so in Britain, but certainly in the United States, and there's a strong Latin American tradition for this. And in this case, women's rights may simply be a casualty along the way of reorganizing the state along a certain way. So I'll end here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Neil. It was an extremely interesting exposition. I'm sure that we could be more time listening to you, but we have a limited space, so I will pass the floor to Jessica Shearer. She comes from the States. She's a recognized expert on digital strategies and also election campaigns. So we would like to know your point of view of how much impact has had the Me Too and Time's Up movements in the social media, and also how are the challenges that you think that women's rights have now. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And I'm just gonna stand over here so I can see my slides and all of you. Nobody needs to be reminded why we're here, right? This is what things looked like in 2016. This was how much of the far right had penetrated Europe. And this is what it looks like in 2018. And this was September of 2018, where Vox, Spain isn't on the map yet because Vox hadn't even taken the seats in Andalusia, which are now reshaping Spanish politics across the country. So what do we do about it, right? In the United States, we have experienced this on a massive level. Trump sits in the Oval Office every day of my life. And I will say this. Trump's election has been one of the worst things for the world, for the Republic, for vulnerable communities, for my country. And the one silver lining is that it has probably been the best thing for the Democratic Party. After Hillary Clinton lost, people like us, younger people, movement people, black women, young women, queer movements, all kinds of folks, we took over, right? We didn't have the White House, but we could take the streets. The Women's March is still the largest march in history, and we have continued to grow from that. But as a political strategist, as a campaigner, I wasn't convinced by that. I was happy to see people in the streets, but I knew we would really know what was happening in the 2018 elections. And the good news is some really excellent things happened in the 2018 elections. And we did discover that we were the ones that we had been waiting for. This is one caucus of the people we elected. 60% of the people we flipped seats with were women. 24% of them were people of color. And does that matter, right? Does that just mean that we have ticked some boxes and improved some numbers? I might need some water. Yes, it matters. And this is why. Because we didn't just increase the number of women, we increased the amount of power that progressives have. The Progressive Caucus is now the largest ideological caucus in Congress. That has never been true before. That is because we elected young women, we elected progressives, we elected people who supported things you've had for generations, like universal higher education that was free and better health care. But it also meant that we took over in a meaningful way, and we were negotiating with the leadership of the Democratic Party for more participation from newer and younger people on parties. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the United States, not because it's more important, but because I'm about to pivot to talk about our political parties and what we need to do differently. And if I talked about individual political parties, I'd get in a lot of trouble. And my goal here is to just get in a medium amount of trouble. So look, this is strategy. It's not charity. We have evidence that we win more often when more women run. Just seeing women changes people's perception of politics. Politicians in the media, depending on which country, are the least trusted people. So we have to change who our parties are. We have to change what our parties look like. We have to change how we structure them, right? I'm a data nerd, and this has been important. When we polled men, Republicans and Democrats, and asked them, of those who had a preference, if it was better to have a male or a female member of Congress, it was 2-to-1. Republicans 2-to-1 preferred that it be a man. But Democrats, under Donald Trump, preferred a woman 7-to-1, right? That's a huge opportunity. When you have that kind of motivation, you have an opportunity. The other side knows this too, though, right? There are twice as many male voters for Vox as there are female voters. It is my personal belief that their choice to go straight after the Violence Against Women Act as their first major campaign, and to bring the Partido Popular and to bring Ciudadanos with them in that fight wasn't just ideology, it was strategy. They wanted to excite their base. They wanted to expand their electorate. So one of the issues is that we have a passion deficit, and we're on the wrong side of that. Our side is less motivated to vote than their side is. So that means that we need to create structures, we need to change structures, and anybody with an organization of any kind should be figuring out how to bring more people, young women, people of color, train them. Also get better, everybody has to get better at campaigning. We have to get better at messaging, we have to get better at understanding data, we have to get better at motivating people. So literally every organization. I was supposed to be downstairs at the campaign camp, but if anybody knows Beatriz, she can convince you of anything. And when she came in to the Pablo Iglesias Foundation, she used Google to archive the policy papers, and she decided to set out to campaign to get more young women excited in the party and to empower them to run. And that's something I would encourage everybody to do. You don't have to change your whole mission, but put one room, put one person in charge of figuring out how to win, so the very good ideas that we have in our policy papers can be enacted. Of course, you need good ideas to win, but you also need to win for those good ideas to matter. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Who here likes Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Yeah, she's very popular. Most of the calls I get from Europe are asking her to speak. One of the poignant and really common things she says in this particular brilliant tweet of hers, when somebody said, "Why did you run for Congress? Why didn't you start with city council?" And she says, "Nobody thought I should run for anything," right? Like, I didn't think about where to start. I ran against everybody's recommendations. And something I would like to say, and I would like folks to think about this for a moment, is how well would Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez do in most of our political parties, right? How high would she be on a list? How much power would we want to give her? A 28-year-old woman who was working as a bartender, who was always willing to speak her mind, to speak truth to power. How likely would it be that she would be a known politician? And I think the truth is it's not very likely. This isn't what most of our politicians look like, and that will require change. That will require expanding the kind of parties we have. And we should be looking at everything. What are our dues structures? How much does it cost to be a party member? Who does that exclude if that number is high? What is the value that we are offering? What is the value that we are offering to young people, to people who should be voting for us but are not? What is the value we're offering to women? And what makes them want to get involved? And are there places that our parties create barriers to young people, to women, to come into the party itself, let alone to be elected to a national Congress or to the European Parliament? I'll wrap it here. So here is both the good news and the bad news, right? This is polling. I have worked with pollsters for 20 years on 3 presidential campaigns. The best pollsters I know, they're called Data Praxis, and they have done some deep work here in Europe to look at who is likely to vote and what they're motivated by. And the other great thing about them is they are designed to be cheap. This never happens with pollsters. But what we're seeing here is that PSOE the good news is, has the most committed voters, right? The people who know that they're going to vote for PSOE are more committed. The really bad news is that's less than 10% of people. So we are looking at all kinds of persuadables. The blue areas, the light blue areas here are people who are planning on voting for that party but not convinced. The gray areas are people who could be convinced to vote for that party. There is a gigantic percentage of people out there that we could convince to vote for us if we were the energetic, movement-looking, feminist, inclusive political parties that we have every ability to be. The only reason we haven't is will. We have the capacity, we have the people, we have the resources, we have the idea. And I would challenge everybody in this room to think about what you personally can do and what every one of your institutions can do to make us a more feminist, more inclusive, and more successful family of political parties. Thank you. If you want the slides or you want to continue the conversation, you can email me, or we're just going to be outside with the digital director for the Obama White House, who's very good at this stuff, and somebody from the polling company, so that we can dig deeper into the idea of how we campaign for a more feminist future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I think there is no time for questions. I'm very sorry, because the panel is extremely... Sorry. Que me ha dado un bajón de azúcar y me he tenido que comer una galleta, ya lo siento. Vale, perdonad. Creo que no vamos a tener tiempo para preguntas porque la vicepresidenta Calvo está al llegar y tenemos que ser muy estrictos con el tiempo. Así que quiero dar las gracias a los 4 ponentes. Creo que daría para un seminario entero, o sea que os doy la idea a Beatriz, a Ernst y a Esther para que hagamos otra sesión profundizando en estos temas, porque creo que ha sido extremadamente interesante. Así que muchísimas gracias a los 4 y ahora vamos a dar la palabra a Ernst Stetter, director de FEPS, y a Esther Neubo, directora de la Campalans, para que hagan unas breves notas de conclusión, y a la 1:15 tenemos que estar todos listos para escuchar a la vicepresidenta Carmen Calvo. Así que muchísimas gracias.
Bien, muchísimas gracias. Amigos de las Juventudes de Cataluña, muchísimas gracias. La verdad que ha sido un placer poder participar de este debate. Yo creo que hemos tratado cuestiones muy importantes, no solo para el socialismo español, sino también para el conjunto de la socialdemocracia europea. Yo, como directora de la Fundación Rafael Campalans, que es la fundación del Partido de los Socialistas de Cataluña, la verdad es que solo puedo agradecer a la FEPS, a la Fundación Europea Progresista de Estudios Progresistas, por el impulso que ha hecho a este Call to Europe, que si no me equivoco es el último que se hace antes de las elecciones europeas, que además es un proyecto que viene desarrollándose en los últimos 8 años y que ha contribuido muchísimo al debate ciudadano sobre cuestiones europeas, que nos ha apoyado muchísimo al resto de fundaciones progresistas, y esto yo creo que hay que agradecerlo. Simplemente decir que hace una semana estábamos en Barcelona debatiendo precisamente de la Europa social como el mejor antídoto contra el auge de los populismos. Yo creo que tiene mucho que ver con este último panel que hemos tenido. Y por supuesto agradecer a la Fundación Ebert y sobre todo a la Fundación Pablo Iglesias, a su presidenta Beatriz Corredor, por la iniciativa, por acogernos aquí y por las ideas que tuvo de estos contenidos, que yo creo que han sido brillantes y merece también un aplauso. Y simplemente, porque vamos muy justos de tiempo, 2 ideas que me gustaría subrayar y que probablemente se van a debatir en el PES Congress de a continuación y de mañana por la mañana. Primero, derecho a una vivienda digna. Beatriz lo hablaba y en el primer panel se hablaba. Es imprescindible que las fuerzas socialdemócratas hagamos un paso más y seamos capaces de hacer políticas públicas y medidas concretas, valientes, precisamente para concretar este derecho y para hacerlo, para blindarlo. Yo creo que aquí Pedro Sánchez ha sido valiente y en las propuestas planteadas pues iba perfectamente en la buena dirección. Lástima que se hayan truncados por el voto en contra de la oposición, y entre ellos Podemos. Yo creo que esto es también un motivo muy importante para ganar las próximas elecciones generales. Y en segundo lugar, feminismo como dique de contención del autoritarismo, de los populismos, me parece que es fundamental. Me parece que es el mensaje crucial con el que tenemos que ir a las próximas campañas, las europeas y también las generales en España. Y es lógico que socialismo y feminismo van de la mano y son la mejor garantía para asegurar este futuro de progreso. Entonces yo lo dejo aquí y doy ahora sí la palabra al secretario general de la FEPS, Ernst Tetter. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Esther. And I would like to start also, somebody gave this to me first time. Muchas gracias a los ponentes y a la audiencia para este excelente debate. Thank you very much for this very, very wonderful debate we had today. We have here a kind of a poster which is called Call to Europe. And you see all the people doing like this. We have invented that at FEPS a couple of years ago, and we called Europe every time when we are doing a kind of an activity. Because this is the most important thing we can do as a European think tank, to incubate ideas, to give something to you, to those people who assist in our conferences, to those people who debate with us, to those people who discuss with us, because we are the convinced foundation at the European level, thinking there is only one thing we can do for this continent, that this continent is going on better, safer, and for a better life for all the citizens and for all the people living on this continent in Europe. And we are having discussed this morning the very crucial question of housing, which is one of the most crucial questions, I would like to say, for our continent in the next years. We are perhaps having a kind of a new period in Europe. We have had the nation state in the 19th century and the 20th century, but I think now we are in a time of urban cities, and we have to develop a way how we live together in a better way, and perhaps this will incubate also new kind of governance. This will bring also new kind of ideas how we can organize this in a better way. And when we had this debate on the housing this morning, there was something in my mind which I thought, and we have not addressed this so far, isn't it that we should think that perhaps the way how our municipalities are organized, the way how we vote for our municipal councillors, the way how we vote for the mayors, should be perhaps organized in another way. Because often it's the case that administration at the municipal level is hindering some development which could be better done by another way of an organization. And in the same sense, I think it goes also when we are talking on the second panel on feminism and how women could be empowered. This is also a question to look, perhaps, I don't know, but this is perhaps also a kind of a new debate, how we should organize this in a different way that we come to the result. And when Jessica talked on the way of how the Americans have done it, it's still not clear why it was possible that a person like this horrible President Trump could have been elected. And it's still not understandable, I have to say, why it's not possible after 2 years of his kind of so-called presidency, there is nothing going on, that there could be an impeachment or something could be done that he be rid of this way of his presidency. Because it's harmful not only for the women in the country, it's harmful for the US, it's harmful for us, and it's harmful for everybody on this continent here in Europe, but also in the world. This is something we would like to do when we are saying we are calling for Europe. We are calling for new inputs. We are calling for an open debate. We are calling also to mobilize. We are at the eve of European elections. And everybody is saying these elections are the most important European elections we ever had. That's true, dear friends, dear colleagues, dear participants. That's true. But I have a bit gray hair. I'm a bit older. I have participated in the first election campaign in '79. It was said it's the most important thing you have to do. Every campaign is important, and every campaign has to do the utmost on mobilization and has to bring a result which is helpful for the future of the citizens and the people living on this continent. And that's why it's so important that we do the utmost to support the candidate of the Party of European Socialists, our Spitzenkandidat Franz Timmermans. I think it's needed that he get the support of each and everybody. And we go out also to our local constituencies and we are saying, well, we have to stop right-wing populism in Europe. And the only way to do this is to vote for Franz Timmermans, because he was one of these people who have worked in the last 5 years to stop what is going on in Poland, to stop what is going on in Hungary, to stop what is going on in these all kind of tendencies of illiberal democracies. This is needed, and we need to mobilize ourselves also, ourselves. And let me, perhaps, I don't know if the Vice President of the government is already on the way, but perhaps a last kind of sentence. I think it's also needed in the debate. We are here in Madrid, and we had something which happened last year, that there was Pedro Sanchez who took the initiative and to get rid of a conservative government with Rajoy. He was governing now 1 year, and he has not got the support now last week or 2 weeks ago for his budget. Perhaps there was a strategy by these conservatives and new Frankists or new fascists or whatever so the question is also that the European socialists, the European progressives, today and tomorrow, united here in Madrid, decided to give the utmost of support to Pedro Sanchez and his government, and to give him everything that he can win and that he can give a better future for the Spanish citizens. But I think also, Esther, you should say something concerning this threat we are having since a couple of years now with your region, where you're coming from Catalonia. I don't want to bring this here on the spot, but also this is for us in Europe something frightening, that all of a sudden there is something coming up we don't understand sometimes anymore. Perhaps we understand too much of that, but we have to fight that unity is perceived and that we get the unity for our nations. And because when we don't have unity within our nations, we don't have unity within Europe. And Europe can only advance when there is a progressive, united way onward. This is, I think, what we have to bring to our voters, what we bring to the citizens, and we have to discuss with the citizens. As a think tank, and I'm talking here as the Secretary General of FEPS, for us, we cannot campaign. This is not our way. I think Kamperland's foundations also cannot campaign. What we can do and what we try to do is that we give ideas, that we discuss with parties, with researchers, to bring new progressive ideas on the way. But it's then up afterwards to the politicians to look what has brought in by the think tanks and by the foundations. And I'm very proud also to announce that FEPS is existing 11 years now, and we have been now eluded by the United Nations, rightly. It's not yet official, and we cannot campaign yet on that and say it, but we have been given the status of a consultative member of the ECOSOC Council of the United Nations. I think this is a big success for a foundation which has been created a couple of years ago, and this is due to the fact that this was done together with the entire team of FEPS, and it was done together also with all the members, because FEPS is a network of foundations. More than 60 foundations are working together with us, and we are not just deciding something in Brussels. We are always discussing with each and everybody around what should be done next, which kind of program we should be launched. And also the Call to Europe, which was launched a couple of years ago, we have decided together with our foundations to say, well, let's go out of Brussels. Let's do this European-wide. And it was so successful that last year we have done, I think, Charlotte, it was over 25 call to Europes all over Europe. Let us continue this, because there is a need that we hinder these people who would like to destroy Europe. And we can only do this if we continue on this path and we give the utmost of the support to each and everybody who is working and engaging and mobilizing for a better life and a better Europe and a better organization of our European Union. We all know that the European Union is not in the best shape ever, but nevertheless, the European Union is quite good working and has also had, with the help of the progressive and socialist commissioners in the last commission, very good results achieved. This has to be really brought out. For example, a very powerful woman, Federica Mogherini, she launched the global strategy. She launched something on the stake of the European Union within the globalized world. She has fight for that, for example, this Trump has done to go out of the Iran deal, that there is a kind of a European mechanism which is brought in and which can help that we can continue with this agreement which was signed. Very good. I already talked on Franz Timmermans, what he has done also to maintain rights, civil rights in the different countries. But there are also the others, for example, the Commissioner Šefčovič, who is for the moment running for presidency in Slovakia. He has done so much work concerning climate change and concerning just transition. I think we have to give this applause also to the work of our progressive and socialist commissioners, that they have done a wonderful work in the last 5 years, and they are merit that they will be continued, this work will be continued, but this can only be done when we have a very good result in the European elections. This is the way forward we have to go, and we have to give this support not only to them, but also when Franz is saying he has two target groups, as you say this in campaigning. First it's women and it's the millennials. And I'm coming now to the last point I will say, and I do hope that Carmen Calvo will come. What is at stake with the millennials? The millennial dialogue, we haven't talked on that. FEPS has launched worldwide, has launched polls on the behavior of the young generations concerning political engagement. And we have just presented in January, we have just presented the results for Europe of the millennial thing. What is coming out of this millennial dialogue? There is one surprising thing, Esther, and I was often laughed on that when I brought this on the stage. What was, for the polls we have done all over Europe, the first thing millennials would like to have? You think access to, I don't know, universities, free access to education? No. They would like a better health care. What the hell is that? Health care, all of a sudden for young people. Normally young people, they don't need to go to the doctor every day or so. No, but what was behind this was our analysis we have made. Behind this, and Mija has said this, we had in the 90s established the welfare state. Behind this is that there were some kind of reforms in the welfare state which are giving a kind of a feeling to the young people, something is wrong with this privatization. Something is wrong with this privatization of the public goods. Something is not working anymore. And they are fearing in the long run that this is hindering also their well-being and their lives. That's why we are also trying to mobilize all over Europe with a magazine we are publishing every quarter, and I see here all the editor-in-chief. It is our colleague Alain. Show me the new. You have the new thing. It's available to each and every. It's called Progressive Post. We have said as a FEPS we need a progressive ideas and incubating of ideas, a progressive post. And that's every 3 months. You can subscribe to that. It's only €3 per copy, but you can also go on the website. All the articles on the website are published, and this gives an idea what are progressive ideas. A lot of people are contributing to that, and I invite also all of you, if you would like, send us an email. If you would like to publish an article, send us the article. We can look and we can publish this on the website, and we can also publish this on the different other websites of our partners, because progressive debate has to be strengthened and has to be intensified. But now I stop and I give the floor to the Vice President of the government of Spain, and we are very honored that Minister Carmen Calvo is just, I think, arriving and coming in, and I think FEPS and Fundación Pablo Iglesias, but also Fundación Campalans could be very honored that we have her to close finally this very exciting morning debate. Esther, please.
Pues muchísimas gracias, Ernst.
Thank you.
Tenemos a la vicepresidenta ya lista para hacer la clausura. Os pedimos 1 minuto simplemente para cambiar el escenario, así que no os vayáis, y muchas gracias a todos.
Hola, 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 sí, hola, 1, 2, pruebas, ya, hola, 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 sí, hola.
ajustame el plano sin dejarme mucho aire.
Buenas tardes. Perdón por el pequeño retraso y muchas gracias. Gracias por el trabajo de nuestras 3 fundaciones. Gracias por la mañana de debate y, sobre todo, modestamente, gracias por invitarme a estas palabras de clausura de la jornada. Estamos delante de una situación compleja y, por tanto, llena también de posibilidades en Europa, en el mundo, también en nuestro país, y conviene que para los socialistas, para los socialdemócratas, no solamente el diagnóstico esté claro, sino sobre todo la novedad de las respuestas. Decía la compañera de vida de Rafael Alberti, de uno de nuestros grandes poetas, que lo revolucionario no es rebelarte, cosa de la que sabemos mucho los socialdemócratas europeos. Lo revolucionario y eficiente es saber por qué te rebelas. Y ese es justo el punto en el que nos encontramos, no solamente en Europa, sino también en el mundo. Hemos vivido una crisis que, sobre las apariencias de crisis económica, siempre fue una crisis política e ideológica. Finalmente ha dado su verdadero rostro, el rostro con el que estuvo siempre pensada y siempre planteada. El rostro de una recombinación de situaciones que pareciera que estábamos abocados no solamente al pensamiento único, sino que el pensamiento único era un rearme del conservadurismo que finalmente da la cara real, la extrema derecha, el pensamiento radical de la derecha tradicional que abandona las posiciones democráticas en el centro. Ese es el verdadero diagnóstico con el que trabajamos cada día, como partidos, como militantes, como gobiernos, en las instituciones, frente a los retos que en cada momento tenemos que asumir y, sobre todo, como decía María Teresa León, la compañera de Rafael Alberti, la eficacia y la revolución de saber cuál es la respuesta y a qué nos rebelamos. El socialismo sigue siendo lo nuevo, absoluta y rotundamente las respuestas nuevas. Somos nuevos siempre. Siempre tenemos la diana clara porque consiste en la diana que está llena de los valores. Venimos de la mejor línea del humanismo, de los mejores valores de la Ilustración y siguen absolutamente vigentes, urgentes y necesarios. La idea de Europa y la Europa que vamos construyendo y que lo hacemos con un entusiasmo particularmente importante los españoles, somos un gran país europeísta, lo hacemos como sinónimo de democracia. Nunca ha necesitado más el mundo y la política internacional a una Europa que defiende como sinónimo de sí misma los valores democráticos y la democracia como única forma de vivir y como única forma de reconocernos y de autogobernarnos. Es de tal necesidad y potencia la idea que no cabe otra alternativa que crecer. Crecer en las respuestas cotidianas que le damos constantemente a la ciudadanía. Crecer en el poder que legítimamente nos tienen que seguir dando las urnas y crecer para parar el dislate que tenemos enfrente de nosotros. Somos, como demócratas y como socialistas, el único parapeto posible a lo que tenemos delante. Lo que tenemos delante no es nuevo, es viejo, viejo y conocido. Lo tenemos bastante bien diagnosticado. Es una vuelta al egoísmo en estado puro, en la clave individual de sálvese quien pueda, justo las antípodas de porque somos socialistas quienes estamos aquí, porque creemos que la vida tiene una doble dimensión, la dimensión individual donde se sustancian nuestras libertades y nuestros derechos y la dimensión colectiva donde somos permanentemente fraternales y solidarios. No entendemos ninguna otra fórmula para vivir y por eso nuestras ideas éticas y políticas conectan con lo mejor que podemos defender como humanos. Por eso fundamentamos los derechos siempre en la dignidad de lo que somos y por eso reconocemos como viejo y, por tanto, fácil de identificar lo que tenemos delante. Tenemos el individualismo egoísta y el colectivo, los nacionalismos, las fronteras, las radicalidades, donde siempre y al fondo hay una sola idea: yo soy superior, yo soy mejor, destrozando el principio fundamental por el que nosotros somos socialdemócratas, porque sentimos y sabemos, la ciencia nos lo demuestra cada día, que somos diversos en la radical igualdad que nos une como seres humanos. Esa es la única posición posible, por eso tenemos que ir determinando cada uno de los pasos. Si la socialdemocracia es lo permanentemente nuevo, dentro de la socialdemocracia se abre paso, por fin, y no como novedad, pero sí con rotundidad, el feminismo. El feminismo es el 50% de la agenda de los socialistas para el siglo XXI, sí o sí. Y lo es por muchas y profundas razones, pero sobre todo por una imbatible. Las mujeres somos más de la mitad de la población. Si las respuestas políticas no son respuestas a más de la mitad de la población, ¿de qué estamos hablando? El feminismo no está impostado en el socialismo, es su corazón desde siempre. Ha ido madurando a lo largo del siglo XX y en el siglo XXI el feminismo y el socialismo están juntos. Lo tenemos que decir porque las mujeres, las hijas, en este momento en cualquier país de Europa no van a tener menos derechos que las madres, porque las madres ya aprendimos la lección de las abuelas, de cómo avanzaba un Estado representativo en fase liberal o democrática sin nosotras, sin el sufragio, sin nuestros derechos, sin las políticas de igualdad que nos hacía plenamente libres y ciudadanas. Y porque eso está en el corazón de las ideas socialdemócratas, las mujeres y el voto progresista mayoritario de las mujeres sigue siendo el parapeto de las ultraderechas en cualquier país europeo en este momento. Somos la garantía en este momento. Lo vamos a seguir siendo porque las mujeres vamos todavía en el camino de ida, en pos de nuestras libertades, en pos de que los Estados garanticen nuestra seguridad, particularmente en la violencia machista y en los particulares delitos que se cometen específicamente por el hecho de ser mujeres. Vamos de la mano de otro de los valores fundamentales de nuestra identidad socialdemócrata, de la mano del concepto en el siglo XXI de la igualdad, que es el concepto de la equidad, porque vamos de la mano de la igualdad en la diversidad, que es la única manera de entender de una manera inclusiva las sociedades actuales, la única manera de hacer que ceda la principal cerrazón de las sociedades patriarcales, que es la injusticia contra las mujeres. Como decía Badinter, cuando cede el uno monolítico de la corrección del patriarcado, cuando cede en igualdad entre hombres y mujeres, dice Badinter, cede también el 3, el 4 y el resto de una sociedad que se tiene que mirar diversa en tantas condiciones en las que cada uno de nosotros y de nosotras somos libres y, por tanto, verdaderos ciudadanos y ciudadanas. Esto que creíamos que la derecha, las derechas conservadoras, bordeando los centros del comportamiento electoral de la política, habían entendido y que sería irreversible, resulta que no es así. Estamos delante de los partidos conservadores abandonando sus propias posiciones y volviendo a lugares donde literalmente se confunden con los extremos de la ultraderecha que pensábamos que eran minoritarios. Que eran minoritarios porque una sociedad democrática sabe que tiene extremos minoritarios, porque forma parte del comportamiento humano, pero se están convirtiendo peligrosamente, ampliando su espacio en mayoritarios. Lo que decía al principio, seguimos siendo lo nuevo frente a eso, y lo nuevo en todas sus versiones, habiendo aprendido durante tantos años en el siglo XX y en el siglo XXI, con el único instrumento para el que los socialistas nos sentimos legítimos, cómodos en el poder, porque somos capaces de entender el poder de una sola manera, con la política. La política significa principios en el ejercicio del poder, obligaciones en las respuestas. Para nosotros el poder es gestión, trabajo, sacar adelante objetivos. No es la vieja idea del poder que tanto adora y que tanto defiende la derecha de antes y la derecha de ahora. Y combatimos con dificultades porque vivimos un espacio político donde todo es mercado, donde todo es relativamente fácil y rápido, y los socialistas somos gente de profundidades que no solamente mira la política desde el trabajo y desde la gestión, sino que la mira también desde el elemento inicial desde el que nos definimos y nos comportamos, la ética. La ética está en cuestión, porque vale todo y sirve todo para alcanzar el poder, y porque algunos están condenando a la democracia en una suerte de simple reparto electoral del poder. Y frente a eso, los socialdemócratas y las socialdemócratas tenemos que seguir llenando de contenido el poder, llenando de contenido el poder con la política, reivindicándola, porque para la inmensa mayoría de las sociedades, de los países a los que nosotros servimos como europeos, la inmensa mayoría necesita saber que con la política y solo con la política a través del poder avanzan en los problemas viejos y en los nuevos retos que nos obligan a hacer transiciones de nuestra economía a modelo sostenible en ese otro gran reto, peligrosísimo reto que tenemos de todas con el cambio climático. Es ahí, y en el feminismo, donde el socialismo se la va a jugar en los próximos años, en las próximas décadas y con todas las agendas con las que seamos capaces de responder. El feminismo no es solo nuevos planteamientos pensados, madurados por las mujeres desde nuestra particular experiencia histórica. El feminismo tiene un sustrato incontestable de la mejor democracia. Dicho de otra manera, la principal desigualdad sobre la que cuelgan las demás desigualdades es la que vivimos entre hombres y mujeres. Sobre ellas cuelgan las demás, así que sobre esta tendremos que fundamentar todas las nuevas igualdades que vayamos a construir. Y eso no es feminismo, es democracia, es Estado constitucional, es compromiso de los valores de un modelo democrático constitucional y la gran defensa de Europa en el mundo. Y hay una parte importante del feminismo. Hay una parte importante del feminismo que la vamos incorporando las mujeres, pero también los hombres, en nuestro ámbito ideológico, en el socialismo, a poco que vamos pudiendo tener legítima presencia y legítima cuota de influencia para colocar en la mesa y en la agenda elementos alejados de la ortodoxia política para colocar problemas que son problemas tradicionalmente condenados a lo que se denominaba, en términos estereotipados, el ámbito privado. Lo dijo Simone de Beauvoir, lo personal es político y las mujeres lo hemos puesto en la agenda socialista y lo ponemos cada día en el abordaje de los viejos y de los nuevos problemas. Por eso, el Partido Socialista Obrero Español, en el 39 Congreso, el último Congreso, se definió tanto socialista como feminista. No fue un solo empeño nominal, fue una profunda convicción de cómo leer los tiempos, de cómo seguir siendo nuevos y eficientes en las respuestas. Somos un gobierno que no solamente tiene muchas más mujeres que hombres, sino un gobierno que, como ayer comentaba yo con compañeras y compañeros, pero con compañeras responsables dentro del Partido Socialista en España de las políticas de igualdad, por primera vez en la práctica política, desde luego de España, yo como responsable del Ministerio de Igualdad no he tenido que influir ni que preguntar nunca qué estaban haciendo el resto de los ministerios, todas las políticas sectoriales del conjunto del Gobierno. Todos y cada uno sabían que su compromiso transversal con las políticas de igualdad era de impulso propio. No ha sido el tutelaje del Ministerio de Igualdad, ha sido el impulso natural y transversal de todo el Gobierno español, que sabe y que entiende en el marco de las ideas socialdemócratas que toca responder de manera profunda y contundente a las expectativas de más de la mitad de la población, que todavía tenemos que bregar con problemas particularmente dramáticos como la violencia de género y que necesitamos que en la agenda del Estado haya respuestas iguales y respuestas particularizadas a los problemas y a las expectativas de la calidad de nuestros derechos y de nuestras libertades. En nuestro país estamos preocupados en este momento. Las fuerzas de ultraderecha y los tres partidos de derechas en esto coinciden, han puesto en tela de juicio la violencia machista. Es decir, están poniendo en debate y en discusión una verdad dura, absolutamente irrefutable, lamentablemente con la que amanecemos y anochecemos en este país, y por eso estamos en una situación de emergencia y de peligro. Si la política transita cada día en el espacio de lo que no es verdad, o mejor dicho, de lo que es mentira, la sociedad está en peligro. La política solo puede estar en el espacio del reconocimiento de los hechos que son objetivables y verdaderos. Las diferencias tienen que estar en las respuestas. Las mujeres de este país, el Partido Socialista y el Gobierno de España no va a sentarse en ningún sitio a discutir la realidad. Solo nos sentaremos a discutir las soluciones. Y esto es absolutamente peligroso y completamente enloquecedor, incluso desde el punto de vista meramente intelectual. Ese debate ha llegado. Y los dos tradicionales partidos, particularmente el Partido Popular y Ciudadanos, más reciente y más joven en la política española, han cedido a la primera. A la primera han cedido en una idea que nace de nuestra experiencia histórica en estos 40 años de Constitución y de democracia plena de España, y han cedido a la primera sobre las políticas de igualdad y sobre la discusión de la violencia machista. Frente a eso, y termino, vendrá un 8 de marzo. El año pasado, el 8 de marzo en todo el mundo amaneció y terminó su día con millones de mujeres acompañadas por millones de hombres, particularmente los hombres demócratas y los socialistas del mundo, haciendo una llamada de atención a todo el planeta acerca de lo que significa hablar de humanidad y de democracia con las mujeres excluidas absolutamente de tantos niveles que son los únicos que dejan claro si somos o no somos ciudadanas. Este 8 de marzo se va a volver a repetir, y una de las mejores imágenes del mundo fue la imagen de España. La imagen de nuestro país fue una de las mejores imágenes del mundo. Fue una imagen cargada de prestigio, cargada de el mejor rostro de España, porque era una sociedad llena de energía, una sociedad vibrante, que 40 años después de entronizar y de vivir la democracia, salía masivamente a pedir igualdad entre hombres y mujeres. Salíamos en todos los rincones de este país y lo vamos a volver a hacer este 8 de marzo. Porque si el año pasado pensábamos, y lo pensábamos, tantos millones de mujeres en el mundo que estábamos avanzando, solo un año después empezamos a comprobar que no está tan claro que podamos seguir avanzando. Hay que redoblar los esfuerzos, visibles, profundos, sencillos o complejos, pero hay que seguir diciendo estas últimas cosas que quiero dejar en el aire. Europa es democracia. La democracia para los socialistas es igualdad, la justicia de la igualdad. Y para la justicia de la igualdad, los socialistas proponemos feminismo, igualdad entre hombres y mujeres. Es un silogismo con el que nos vamos a jugar la dignidad en todos los países del mundo, la dignidad de Europa, y esa dignidad se va a volver a ver el 8 de marzo en España y en Europa y en el resto del mundo, para que quede claro, como decía antes, que el parapeto más importante desde el punto de vista político, desde el punto de vista progresista, sigue siendo el voto mayoritariamente progresista de las mujeres del mundo, de las mujeres de mi país. Gracias.